All right, it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to call the Board of Selectmen's meeting to order. If I can have somebody request a waiver of the reading for the Zoom guidelines.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Whiteman seconds.
And roll call.
Clark.
Benoit aye.
Whiteman aye.
And Nichols' aye. We'll start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. First on the agenda is approval of Treasury Warrant 22W11 and Payroll 22PW11.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Whiteman seconds.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Clark, aye.
Benoit aye.
Whiteman aye.
And Nichols' aye, excluding any COA wages. And next is the meeting minutes from November 15th.
I don't see anything wrong with it. I'll approve them. Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Whiteman seconds.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Clark, aye.
Benoit aye.
Whiteman aye.
And Nichols' aye. All right. And do we have anybody here for open session?
Do you mean public comment?
Public comment, yep. Yep, you do? Okay, if you can just state your name and address.
Carolyn Streeter, 11 Meadowbrook Circle.
Okay.
So I'm in a butter of 285 Main Street and 12 Phillips Road. 12 Phillips Road, where the telecommunications tower is proposed to be built. So I'm trying to get myself caught up on what has happened surrounding the situation up until this point. So let's see. 2 weeks ago, I believe, I came to the select meeting and inquired about the easement that was discussed. And my understanding was that it was for the discussion between Blue Sky Towers and the town hall, or the Board of Selectmen, was about the potentiality of an easement to run wires, to run utilities across 285 Main Street, is that right?
Correct.
But the minutes from the September 20th board meeting where that was discussed are confusing to me, if you would. So I have a copy of the minutes here. And it says Blue Sky Towers, will need to access the tower via the school driveway to run the electricity to the other side of said driveway. Then there's a little bit about the road being surveyed. And then it says, the town will also be granting them an easement in order to gain access from the school property. So can that be clarified, please?
Yeah, we did this last week. And had further discussions because another citizen brought this issue up to me. Not the issue of the easement for the electrical, because that was discussed, but also the letter that was sent also describes access off the road.
Right.
So I explained this at the last meeting that the town has not formalized that process in any way as of yet, because right now it's before the zoning board of appeals to see if it even gets approved. The discussion that's gone on has been about that access and the easement for the electrical. If it gets approved, and it would first have to be approved, the town hasn't even finished negotiating any kind of easement, so that negotiation has not happened as of yet. There's been some discussion that the company has offered the town to do basically a study on the road to make that a permanent road. That study is part of the discussion as to the value of the easement that would be traded. That's been discussed but not formalized in any way as of yet. So that process would eventually come back to this board for that further discussion. I would be negotiating that with the developer, bring back it to this board for this board's potential approval and for their recommendation to bring it to town meeting, because any easements have to go to town meeting for approval. And most of this is what I expressed at the last meeting. we really didn't discuss so much that access piece. That was really clarified to me about a citizen, about the way the letter was drafted, and what we signed. But again, I wanna stress that the town is taking no position on supporting or not supporting our program, that they came to us to simply ask us if we'd be willing to do an easement, would we consider doing an easement, and that's all we are at this point, that we've suggested we would be open to that discussion, and that's it at this time.
Hi, my name's David Gold. I'm and a butter to the cell tower as well.
And
My
your
address is
address
4
too?
Phillips Road. So, to just be sure about what you're saying, so any discussion about easement would, the petitioner is offering some compensation, and that would be discussed before the public at a town hall meeting,
Yeah, the Board of Selectmen's meeting,
and
correct.
researched as to the true value, because the original documents proposed by AT&T and Blue Sky Tower stated they were going to enter through Phillips Road, which is a much longer and more expensive task for them. And now by going through, getting this easement, they would be, it'd be very beneficial to them. So I would hope it would be very beneficial to the town.
So this is an interesting debate and discussion, because I've had this again with another citizen. The question of that value of the easement will actually end up being determined by the town assessor. But there's different points of view on the value of that easement, okay? Is the easement have a value based upon the easement alone and the value of the easement? Or does it somehow have a value as related to the savings by a potential developer for going that way? I'm not convinced, at least in my mind yet, and this is something the Board of Selectmen is gonna have to look at, if they can determine the value of that easement based upon some cost savings to the developer and not on the easement itself. But that issue has been raised and is going to have to be discussed as we go further in this process. Because you're right, the savings is significant for them accessing to that driveway versus the other property. And the question is, I'm not sure about if that can be considered an evaluation, and that's something we are gonna have to talk about. But it is an open discussion point, yes.
Very good, thank you.
And just one more question, please, about the minutes. And I do understand now, so what was discussed in the September 20th Select Board meeting was potentiality of an easement, not just for utilities, but also for access.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little hard time with the mask, if you could just a little bit more.
I understand now that what was discussed in the September 20th Select Board meeting was the potentiality of an easement, not just for utilities, but also for access.
That was on the letter that was put forward to the developer, and the board supported at least sending that letter to the zoning board of appeals that the town would consider this. But again, it's something the town would consider, allow them to go forward, but it didn't say the town was gonna enter into the agreement. That's all gotta be determined.
Okay, and in the minutes, it says the town will also be granting them an easement in order to gain access from the school property.
Again, I wanna stress, the letter is something that we would consider. It has not been determined by the Board of Selectmen to do a formal easement as of yet.
So that's just an
But it
inaccuracy.
is considered, it is something that was part of the consideration and asked for by developer, but that decision has not been made by anybody as of yet. It eventually will have to be made by the Board of Selectmen and eventually a town meeting.
I understand, so this is just an inaccuracy in the minutes. where-
What's that?
This is just an inaccuracy then in the minutes, where it says
That's
the
a
town,
consideration, the board didn't vote to support it, it was
It
just to
says-
consider.
the town will also be granting them an easement in order to gain access from the school property.
That's part of the consideration of what they were asking for, right, but we did not vote to approve that. So it's just, we voted, we said we would consider it. So in other words,
Okay.
they'll have to bring the proposal to the board and with all the details, and then the board would have to make a decision on whether they would grant that.
I totally understand that, but it's absolutely not how it's worded in the minutes, which leads to confusion.
Understood.
Thank you, thank you.
Do we have any other public comment? Okay, thank you. Then we're gonna go to the assessors under the department heads. Is Harold
I
here?
don't think he's here yet.
Yeah, he's here, so.
Oh, he's online, I'm sorry.
Okay. We all set? No, we can't hear you.
Turn on your mic, Harold.
Now can you hear
Okay,
me?
there we go. Thank you.
Well, good evening. I'm joined this evening by my colleague and Amy, you want to wave? Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Amy and I serve as your assessors along with Candace as our administrative assistant in the assessor's office. We were invited to come and join you for a few moments at your meeting tonight, give you an update on the office, where we're at, and what we're planning on doing, some projects that are in the making, and then stand ready to answer any questions you might have. First, I want to note that we are anticipating getting all of our assessment approvals. We thought we'd have those actually today, but we're anticipating getting our Department of Revenue approvals on fiscal year 2022 valuations, along with our new growth certification. With that, we'll be joining you again on, I believe it's Thursday, December 9th. Is that right, Amy?
Yes.
Yes, at 6 o'clock for the annual classification hearing. The valuation process, as will relate to you next Thursday, is a fairly challenging process, especially in this crazy real estate market that we're contending with. Taxpayers will be seeing some increases in their valuations attributable to the market, what we're seeing in the way of market sales. And we'll talk a bit more at the classification hearing about that. Wanted to also briefly mention that we're also working with Cartographic Associates, our mapping and GIS vendor, to bring some enhanced services to the town through the integration of pictometry imagery with our geographic information system. About a year and a half ago, I had the town flown, that is aerial photography generated, along with what is known as pictometry. That's oblique imagery. Instead of looking straight down at properties, it actually, the technology captures imagery at an oblique angle, aerial angle, and by integrating that imagery with our GIS, we'll be able to essentially do a 360-degree walk around properties. I think a real boon not only to the assessment, our assessor's office, but any of the other boards in town, including the land use offices, and then of course emergency services. So that's kind of the notable project that we've been working on. Much of the rest of what we do is just the cursory work that we undertake on a daily basis to capture all of the new construction, which there's been quite a bit, and getting that all translated into new taxable valuation. I guess with that, I'll stop for a moment and pause. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Anybody from the board have any questions? Lee, do you have any questions? I think we're good so far. Do you have any questions, Ron?
Well, just a comment, it's not really to what Harold said. Two comments, Harold. Well, I guess one to the flyover. I know we've been talking about using that information in our GIS systems. I mean, you had exchanged some emails about that. Do you know where that is? I know you were talking to a couple of people and they said it was possible, but do you kinda get a final status of where that's going?
I haven't gotten an update. Amy, I don't know if you've heard anything yet. You reached out to Tim Fountain at Cartographics today.
I did. He's actually traveling, so he's not able to really give me any information as far as that goes, but he said he will give me a call this week. So as soon as I have that information, I will let everybody know.
So let the board know I'm talking about. They did a flyover of all the town properties. That can be laid over to various maps, GIS maps and stuff we have that will allow different department heads to be able to access that information better. So we're trying to utilize that flyover in a way to help other departments as well and other information sources. So that's the point of what we're trying to discuss. And Amy, just to let you know that we got about 6 applications in for the assistant assessor's position. I'm told you're available Mondays, so I'm gonna try for a Monday or Tuesday because I'd like to bring you in on those interviews if that's possible.
That'd be great.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Okay. Anything else?
I guess, could I have one more comment, Mr. Chairman? Harold, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, just, I sent you an email, and you probably heard the previous public discussion about that easement. I did send you an email to look at that, to see if you could come up with what the valuation of that might be, so I'm not sure if you started looking at that, but if you have any questions, give me a call, but we need to figure out what a legitimate and reasonable easement value that is, in case that is considered in the future.
Yeah, I thought I had responded. I think my recollection's a little vague. This has been just a crazy few weeks trying to get everything wrapped up for tax rate setting, but I thought I had responded, but if not, we can certainly bring some sort of a response to you and the select board. I have to admit, at this juncture, it's morning, day, and night, trying to get all of our approvals in place for the tax rate setting, and if we could hold off a week or two, that would be really welcome.
Okay. Thank you. We'll discuss it further later.
Great.
All right. I think we're all set. We
Okay.
We
We'll
appreciate you
dismiss
coming.
ourselves then.
We
Thank you,
appreciate
Amy.
you coming and giving us an update. It's just nice to hear from the different departments, just what's
Yeah.
happening. So
I would have loved to have come and sat with you personally, but tonight I have 3 classification hearings following my session with you. So a little hard to be in 3 different places at one time. So I'm thankful for the power of Zoom.
well, we appreciate it. All right.
Thank you,
Well,
guys.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Have a good evening. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, Ron. You want
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of things I wanted to kind of let you know of. I received an email today, and it's about a statewide settlement with opioid distributors. Particularly this one is Johnson & Johnson, I think a few others. As you know, the municipalities and states all across the country have filed lawsuits against various pharmacies and others about the distribution of opioids and how much danger they've caused citizens across this country. I've been notified that they have come to a settlement with at least a few of those distributors, and that I'm not sure. I asked our attorneys if we were part of any settlement, because there was a host of attorneys out there recruiting people for settlements. So I'm trying to find out from our attorney if we were part of that. But regardless of that, even if we weren't part of that, the state has informed me that we are allowed to be a part of that settlement case, and that we have to fill out some forms and stuff. We're going to fill out those forms. We don't know how much money the town would get, or frankly, how many. There's going to be. All I can tell you is 15% of the total settlement is going to towns and cities. How much that means in terms of us and towns across the Commonwealth, I'm just not sure of, because I literally got the email today. But the good news is we will get some funds as a result of that settlement. As I understand it, and again, I just got it today, is it can be used for like healthcare, trying to educate people about the dangers of opioids and all kinds of things under that area of healthcare. So it is good news, and I will keep the board informed more as we move forward with that. Secondarily, as you know, we are going to be entering union negotiations with 4 of our unions. I've been preparing this week for proposals and getting prepared for that. I discussed with the chairman today about having an executive session in 2 weeks to discuss those negotiations, just to kind of,
Maybe 1 week, maybe a week.
I'm sorry, a week, you're right, it's a special meeting. Just to have a general discussion. If any of you have any input as to these union contracts, please let me know. As you are aware of, I think now, is that I posted all contracts, town contracts, collective bargaining agreements and town contracts on the town's website. So any citizen who is interested in any of our collective bargaining agreements or individual contracts with either vendors or individual employees, you can go to the town administrator's website and get that information right off the website. I know the finance board had a particular interest in that, so they're all available to anyone who's interested in finding out that information. Those negotiations will be upcoming, and the general discussion is just how we approach those when we do our executive session. As you also know, this is the beginning of budget season. So I've been spending a lot of time preparing the documents for the budget season. Those have now been sent out to all my department heads. I sent a specific one to the finance committee chair, but I sent documents to all the different department heads asking for them to prepare their budgets. And I sent out also letters to all the different boards and commission chairs as well. A lot of them have one-line kind of budgets, but I wanted them to be engaged in the discussion this year. I feel a little bit better about the budget process this year. One is I've been through it for a year. 2 is that we're not starting from quite the deficit that we started from in last year. When I mean that, I mean from $405,000 to approximately $100,000 is our situation now. So we're in better position in that regard. I am hoping that the state funds our education system better than it did last year. We took significant cuts to our education system last year, and hopefully the state seems to be doing very good in its revenue collection. Hopefully the state will see its way to giving our system more money, and that'll take some of the burden off of us as well. I sent a letter out in regards to that. I sent a letter out to the board today. It's a letter that we're going to be sending out to the chairman of the school committee and to the administration of the school committee based upon a past vote that we had. The chair can sign it. I think the letter reflects exactly what the vote was. The town manager of Holden said he was just gonna, put this like in a signature format and send it out. But if you guys feel the need to actually sign it, the chair can sign on your behalf. But we are gonna let them know 4 of the 5 towns did vote for it. The town of Sterling, let me clarify because people are listening that probably are not aware. We have asked that the school system propose no more than a 2.5% increase to their budget this year. And 4 of the 5 towns in the regional agreement, Princeton, Holden, Rutland, and Paxton have all agreed to that, along with the finance boards of those towns. So that letter will be going out. I sent it to the finance chair as well today, to them to let them know how concerned we are about the future budget and the dynamics around the budget that are causing the town to be very careful in this budgeting. So that letter is very basic. I expect that will be sent out shortly. I don't think you guys really need to sign it, but if you feel strongly about it, we can have you sign it. And that goes for the chair of the finance committee as well. I think it clearly reflects the views that the finance committee and the board of selectmen brought forward. So I feel pretty good about that.
I think we should be consistent with the other towns, so
well,
if
right
they
now-
do sign or don't sign, I don't
Well, the
think
chair,
there's some
the
signatures.
town manager of Holden sent to me today saying, so that everybody doesn't have to try to sign this, we could just put it in like a script
Mhm.
text and send it, and that would be fine, he thinks. And I don't think anyone's gonna object to that,
Right.
so I agree we'll be consistent with what other towns are doing. I feel very good about the process, and last year, I'm not gonna lie, it was a little tougher with the finance committee because we were getting to know each other. Hopefully this year we know each other a little bit better, and it'll be a little smoother in that relationship as well. I look forward to working with the chair and moving that process along as well as can be.
So the information you sent along, was that the Excel spreadsheet that they've been
It's
looking
the,
for?
what I sent is the memo that went to all the department heads to explain how for them to develop their budget. I sent out individual spreadsheets to all the departments. They're all different depending upon their department. So the finance chair got one that just dealt with reserve and with her clerk. So all departments got one like that. And then what they will do is when they send that back to me, I'll put that on a master spreadsheet that eventually will, me and Karen will be working.
Is that what you're looking for, or was it an Excel spreadsheet for the wages?
It's
Oh,
the
that's
Excel
a
spreadsheet for the wages, that's the one
Yes.
thing that we're going to have.
Yeah, that's,
So
that's.
you don't have
completely-
that yet?
No, we haven't even prepared it yet, so they haven't gotten it yet, but we recognize, there's a couple of things going on. Again, we're doing union negotiations, so we're looking at salaries for all the union members as well. We understand, what the salary parameters that we believe are gonna be moving forward. And we also understand that we wanna take a very close look at the, issues of steps this year for the summer meeting, so that's something that, myself and Becky are gonna have to work on together. I've already told, I think, the chair that, we're gonna try to put together kind of a town-wide plan. Instead of having department heads offer different things, we wanna have one plan that encompasses all the department heads and be work with the finance committee once we have that in place.
And I think I'd asked Leah to be point for the board as far as working on
Yeah,
the
she's welcome to
matrix.
be involved in any way, yeah. But we gotta get some document to work from, and we're not there yet. And frankly, to be honest with you, our treasurer collector's really busy right now, and this is a summer, town meeting thing, we got some time, so it's not gonna be done tomorrow. This one's gonna take a little bit of time, because we have other bigger issues kind of ahead of us before we get to that point. But it will be ready, and plenty of time for everybody to discuss before we get to town meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I've just been asking for it for almost a year now, so I understand that it takes time and everything, but I don't want it to fall off the radar and then be a scrambling in May right before the town meeting, so.
The treasurer collector is already aware of it, the issue, and we know we're gonna be working on it. I think we've all agreed that we gotta get it done. It's gonna be quite complicated to figure it out, because it's been chopped up in so many different ways. We've got a lot to figure out, because we have to figure out a solution that works for everybody, not just for one or two people or something. It's not gonna be easy to fix, but we have to have something. And I bet my last dollar that not everybody will be happy with the solution, because it won't fix everything in the way they think it should be fixed, and it will be going forward, not backwards, so.
And I think, if I may, I think it's also going forward, having something that, I don't think it's been looked at since it was created in 2010 or whatever with Margaret. So I think just having something that's updated and that we can work towards, it may not be feasible every single year, but that we kind of look at every year throughout the budget process, throughout reviews, throughout everything, that it matches job descriptions and salaries and steps.
So wait a minute, now we're talking about two different issues, so I wanna be clear here. We're talking about an issue that tries to attempt to fix the steps in some plan to do that. What I think the select woman is referring to right now is something where a consultant comes in and evaluates other job descriptions, evaluates as the base pays. That's something that frankly is beyond myself or the treasurer collector. That's something where you bring in a company to do that whole analyzation. We don't have funds for that study. That's a much bigger process than we can handle. And if we really wanna do that, we're gonna have to look for funds to have a company come in and do that. That's a different kind of issue.
Well, but like I said, there were some blatant inconsistencies that are obvious that need to be addressed and corrected.
Well, that's what we're
throughout.
trying to do in the step process, but I think there is, I think you can make a case that Selectman Whitman is making, that at some point, a whole new review of all the salaries and everything has to be done. Now, I think that our salaries are mostly in pretty good shape. There's some exceptions from individuals. But in most cases, we're in pretty good shape. But there's two issues. One is you have to have the cost of the study. Two is, once that study is done, if they recommend higher salaries, you have to be able to fund what you're doing there. But it's something, if the board wants to consider having another study done, that's something maybe we want to budget for in the summer budget, in the annual budget, and then have later somebody come in and do that evaluation again. Because I think it was done, I want to say during early Margaret's time. But it would have to be, that's bigger than us.
I'm not arguing for that step at this point. I'm just trying to reconcile what exists currently and how we match what exists currently with job descriptions that exist currently, and how we can track with what we have currently. And I think that that's probably on the horizon for sure. It's a much bigger commitment, and I think we need to make sure that we have a solid foundation before we just go do another salary study that we can't commit to fulfilling.
That's the difficult
So
part about it.
I'm just looking for that information as to kind of where we are now.
So I just to be clear, our focus for the annual town meeting is to try to fix the step problem. That's the focus we're gonna have for that, and then we're gonna have to reevaluate what I think is a bigger picture. But truthfully, in my opinion, again, I'm not a consultant, I don't review salaries like this to compare them. So I'm not that type of a consultant, but if we think, I guess I don't believe yet we're there, but I think at some point we are gonna be there, and I think we're gonna have to evaluate it. But again, I honestly, I can't tell you off the top of my head if all the salaries are where they are, but I get a sense that there's very few positions out of whack for what's in the marketplace. But again, that's my guesstimate more than factual. That's all I have for my administrative report, Mr. Chairman.
We had asked you about an update on the Woodhouse roof.
Yeah, the Woodhouse roof, as a matter of fact, I sent that out again today. Joe has been talking to contractors, and Joe has determined that he wants to get the whole front half of the roof fixed, trying to do that prior to winter. He has a contractor that he's working with to do that. I sent out, I guess I didn't attach you guys on, I sent to Peter and to Sheila, Peter Preserve and Sheila Judkins, who's been working on this issue. I sent them an email today of what Joe's planning on doing. I'll be happy to send that email out to you guys tomorrow. But Joe has a plan for doing the front half of the roof, which is in budget. As you know, the issue there is we have to meet the prevailing wage scales, but he feels that at least the front half of the roof can be done this year prior to winter.
If I may, through the chair, can I have update clarification from kind of your office as to what happened with that? Because I've heard bits and pieces all over, and last I had heard was that the money was in the state budget and it was taken care of, and we didn't have to worry about it going into town meeting to allocate any free cash. And now I'm hearing from bits and pieces of other individuals that that's not the case, and there's not that money doesn't cover the
So
repairs that are needed.
I apologize, I thought we talked about this at the past selectmen's meeting, but I may have had that discussion with the chairs. So originally what happened is the town got, I want to say 45,000, might be 35, I forget what the exact number is, from the state as part of the grant. We got that money, and we got the money for the prison camps, right?
25.
How much was it?
25.
$25,000 for that. And the hope was that we could do, the whole roof with that amount. Joe went to the state bid list, and had contractors go off the state bid list and look at the roof, and the estimates came out at almost triple that number. So Joe, there was no way we could do it off of that. So Joe is now not looking at the state bid list anymore, but looking at more local contractors who still have to meet prevailing wage to do the front half of the roof. And he actually has a contractor that he wants to use. And again, that's in the email, I don't have the name on the top of my head, but to do the front half of the roof. The chair brought, from a citizen, there's a couple of issues. One is that there was some indication from a citizen, a member of the Historical Commission, that there might be some mold involved. And the issue of I want to call it a prefab, but it's the concrete above the roof. There's a name for it, but I can't think of it. It's like a slab of, not like particle board, but harder than that, that's above the roof that water has been coming onto it. There's a concern that might collapse. And the building inspector, the DPW director, has asked the building inspector to go and look at that and for him to make a determination about that. What's the name of that material, Jeff? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Sheetrock.
Sheetrock. Nah, it's not even a sheetrock. It's something like sheetrock. But yeah.
Cement board?
Gypsum board.
What's it?
Cement board?
Yeah, it's like a cement board. I'm not, but that, I guess what's happened is the water's gone onto that, and there's concern that it's weighty and it might fall. That's what Peter and the Historical Commission is concerned about. So the building inspector has to go and look and see if that is an issue or not an issue, but he's been informed to go look at it, and we gotta see what his determination is.
And throughout this process, you've been in communication with the board and with the chair, and so they've been aware
With
of
Peter
all
and with
these
Sheila,
issues as
yeah,
as
with
we
Peter
go
and
on.
Sheila. The first person though was you, Mr. Chairman, who told me about the mold. But other than that, we've had that discussion. The mold was something new. Joe didn't seem highly concerned about the mold issue, but I don't know that they've looked at it that thoroughly yet, but he didn't seem very concerned about it. But that was the only part that I learned new, and I think you heard that from that other gentleman who talked to you about it at the special town meeting.
I just want to make sure that they're up to date and aware and agree
They are
with
all
the
aware of the
process.
issues that you brought forward, and including the mold issue now. Yeah.
And I guess I'm just a little bit frustrated with the timing of it all, that we just went into town meeting and we knew that this was a priority to have done over the winter, before the winter, and we thought it was all set, and I don't know how the timing of it arose that, if the board could have done anything to get a warrant article on the town town meeting warrant.
So my answer to that question would be, I think highly unlikely. The fastest procurement process is when you go to the state bid list. That's why Joe tried to rush it by going to the state bid list, because then you don't have to go through the formal RFP process or request for quotes or any of that stuff. So Joe tried to go through the fastest route possible, because the initial hope was to try to do this work before winter.
I'm talking
And
about
it-
the funding piece though.
Yeah, but we thought we had enough money in the first place. We didn't know we didn't have enough money until the actual was put out to the state bid list. That's when we learned that they triple the rates. And a lot of that, I think, has to come from building construction rates have just skyrocketed in the recent months that this caused problems through the whole industry.
And these repairs that are gonna be done now, are the repairs already done to the roof? You just-
No, there was an initial repair done, and that did not hold the water out completely. It stopped some of the water, but it did not stop all of the water. So that's why, again, Joe's been working to redo it and have a
And
company.
the person that did the initial repairs, is it the same person doing these
I
repairs?
think it is.
And is there any warranty or any compensation for the fact?
Well,
that-
no, I think it was just, they thought it was a minor repair and they did some things to try to stop it, but it obviously needs more work than what they had hoped in the beginning, so I think as they develop through it, they're finding the repair needed more than that, but I will send you the more detailed email from Joe tomorrow, and you can look at what he says.
Jeff, did you have a comment?
If I could, Jeff Stillings, 3 Lord Lane. So there's several situations surrounding this. All of them are very frustrating regarding the roof. And if the board could be actively looking towards a solution, I think the Historical Commission and Society would certainly appreciate that. I stepped into the Historical Society building about a week ago, and I was a little alarmed to see that they literally have tarps on the floor, and they're catching it, the drip from the subwall. So it's coming through the roof, and then through the subwall, and then they're literally catching it from within this building. There's several $100,000 worth of antiquities in there, including Revolutionary War uniform and musket, and everything relating to the history of the town is within the confines of this building, which I don't equate to being any bigger than a single-family house in Rutland. So, back when I was on the board, Mr. Buckley obtained the estimate. It was $24,000 to completely replace the roof, and that was probably a year ago. And that's where the original estimate came from Joe Buckley. And then fast forward to this year, when it came time, Ann Goby got us the $25,000, and it came time to put, hammer and nail. The minimum bid was $74,000 to $94,000. So there's the first frustrating factor on there. And then I was in some email traffic back and forth about how maybe we can just patch this up. But it still doesn't fix the problem which you have with the roof. I have several friends in town who have had roofs replaced or having roofs replaced right now. And I said, how much are you paying for your roof? Because I know everything's gone up. Gas has gone up. Inflation's going up. But they're still saying $13,000. Single-family house on Watson was $13,000 to redo that roof. So the problem is through the state process of having to go through this approved list. Speaking as a citizen, I would rather not see that $25,000 go just to plug the hole, because the problem is grand in there. The problem is having to go through the contractor list, which is gouging us. There's no reason for $74,000 to $94,000 for the Woodhouse roof, which is a single-family home size. What I suggest is go to Tip Top Roofing or the people you see in town that are knocking it out in a day, right? Can you do this for $25,000? Yes. I think you will. I think if you found somebody that, and then the only problem is violating the
State procurement law.
violating that. But well, we'll go to jail together. Do it. Ask forgiveness. This is Rutland. You get to pick what you want. But anyways, please don't just allow for the $25,000 to patch it up, because this problem is more serious than that, and it's also holding up. We have the Festival of Trees this weekend at the library, but the Historical Society has a whole series beginning in January by the decade of different open houses which they plan in conjunction with the 300th. But that's all on hold because of the tarps situation in there. So appreciate the update. I really think the select board needs to be mean on this, and,
Well, I mean, that was part of my
Let's see what you
frustration
can do.
in the differences in the pricing, but I think we did check with Senator Goby's office, and we do have to go through
Yeah.
procurement for grant funds to use those funds, so that's really not an option, my understanding.
So a couple of comments, Jeff. First, thank you, and the history is very good.
Yeah.
So when you originally came up with the estimate, I actually reached out to Senator Goby asking for funds to fix the roof, and that's how we came up with the 25. And you're correct, now thinking about it, it was based upon the estimate that we had from Joe
Yeah, from
Buckley
Joe.
quite some time ago.
Yep.
So that's why we asked for the money, and then, of course, the contracts for roofing all skyrocketed. I gotta be honest with you, I understand the frustration. I can't break procurement law. I mean, they would take away my certification, it's against the law, we have to follow that. Now, to be clear, and I sent the letter out to Peter and to Sheila, but I think it, and I'm a little cautious because I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was $19,000 to do the whole front of the roof is what I think we're at now. Again, they'll see it tomorrow, Peter and them already have it, but I think it's 19 grand, it's not just patching the roof, but to do the whole front of the roof. And then, if we need to get more money at summer, regular time meeting, we can do the back of the roof then. But we wanna fix the problem, at least to get the water issue solved for this winter, and that's where we're at this moment.
if you guys could just stay on top of it, I think, both the society and the commission would definitely appreciate it. We need your help.
Nancy Nichols, 5 Lizzie Lane. I'm just hearing some contradictory information here, because you just said it's not the state contract. You don't have to go to them, you just have to follow procurement law. So why can't you get 3 local estimates?
You can, and that's what Joe's doing now. Originally, he went to the state bid list, he's going to locals now. The difference is, the one thing that, when we talk about this under state procurement law, is that under state procurement law, you have to do prevailing wage, which you know is outrageously expensive, and that costs often doubles or more than doubles the cost of roofing contracts, because you have to pay those salaries. So that's where we're at now. But Joe has worked that out for the front half of the roof. So we aren't using the state list anymore.
With 3 different people, because it doesn't,
But
it's
you
not
have to put out for
necessarily double,
quotes,
depends on what
you have
category.
to ask for quotes from 3 different people, is a
Right.
requirement. You don't have to get quotes from 3 different people, but you have to ask for quotes from 3 different people. And that's what Joe's done.
And did the 3 come in anywhere near each other? Is 119 for the front half?
All I
and
know is the
other-
one he said he was gonna use, which was the 19 one, but I don't know what the other quote said.
It might make sense to hear what all 3 are, I might be able to get the whole roof done for 25.
Well, 19
Like
was
the
the low
numbers.
quote, so it would not mean that the whole roof could be done, because 19 was the low quote.
So-
But I'll check and see what the other quotes were. I just didn't ask him, because he recommended the lowest one, and that's what he was gonna move forward on.
So when you
He was
provide
gonna-
us with that information,
Yeah,
we can see the
provided with
quotes
that
as well. Carol has that.
So I'm gonna rock the boat, if I may. After town meeting, I've been thinking a lot about this and talking to people, and I would like to propose that we forego the $25,000 grant, put this out to RFP, to our local people, keep our local people in business, and get a full roof on that building.
So,
And I don't know what the procedure is to do that, Mr. Chair, but I'd like to propose that we look into
so
that.
just if I can answer that,
That's
it
right.
doesn't matter
That's
if
right.
we didn't use a dollar of that grant. Any construction contract done by the town, regardless if it's grant money or not, has to pay prevailing wage, so it doesn't
And
matter.
I think we should ask our local contractors if they
Mhm.
would give us a bid using prevailing wage and keep our town of Rutland in business at these terrible times that are out there anyway, and people just aren't putting roofs on their houses and they're patching things, but I would like to propose that we.
So when
get
Joe
hold
got
of
those 3 bids, did he ask 3 people, or did he put it out there and people just submitted it? How
Again,
was
I
that
can only
process
tell you,
done?
I can only tell you the solution he gave me with the bid and what he was gonna do. I don't know the other companies.
So
That's
I'd
the
like us to
standard
be able to
process, so I'll check and see what
review
the other
those
process is,
quotes
yeah.
and get information on
Sure.
how that was obtained, because
Yeah.
I'd like to know if he just went and asked people he knew, or if he put it out there and people,
Right.
so.
Generally, the requirement is that you send the same scope of services to at least 3 companies. That's the
Right, but I
procurement
just wanna know
process.
how he chose the 3 companies,
Yeah.
if they were local.
I also recall in a board meeting that we asked you to please fix the roof with the $25,000 that we had right now. We didn't have the money, and we said we'd cover it and wait for that grant to come in, and that is also because we waited for the grant rather than doing the roof. And now we're at 3 times as
Well,
much,
just-
so I'm,
And we've missed the opportunity for the special town meeting to allocate free cash to get it done before the winter, before this really 300th gets going and is, so if we knew that it was gonna be 100,000 instead of the 25. We could have gone to put an article on the warrant and asked for either the difference or a lesser amount that we knew was actually going to be what it cost. But I didn't learn about any of this until after town meeting. So I don't know how the timing of it worked, and I don't know, all I know is that we were very clear we wanted it done before winter started. And we knew that the 300 had a whole lot of stuff going on and everything. So I'm extremely frustrated about the timing of it and the back and forth, and you know, sometimes we need this and sometimes we need this, and it's just extremely frustrating.
So I guess I would propose that we get all the information to see like what the quotes were, where they came from, and what Joe's notes are, and then we can regroup and make a decision on whether we're gonna go that route or if the board feels we should go another route.
So we're saying that the roof is not going to be done, no contract's going to be awarded.
Did he have a
until
date set
we
to even
look at-
do it?
I know he's been working on it and talking to contractors, so we'd have to ask him tomorrow and bring him in to the select board meeting. But I thought his plan was to try to get it done as fast as possible, to do the front part of the roof so that would be done before winter, which was, I think that the board really wanted. So I think he's trying to meet the board, what the board
But
wants.
it sounds like just not just the front needs to be done, the whole roof needs to be done, it's all done at once, and
So my understanding is that the part that's leaking is the front part of the roof, that's why he wanted to get that part done. That would solve the leaking problem. But again, if you're gonna do the front part of the roof new, you wanna eventually do the back part of the roof.
Jeff, do you know if there's leaking in the back from what you were told?
I would bet you there is. I would highly suggest that you take a look over there. When I went in there just to stop and say hello, I was very surprised. I knew there was some leaks, but to see right in the main room where they're literally catching water on there, and it's coming through here, which, through the subceiling, which means that it has to originate at someplace else. So I would recommend that somebody meet up with Sheila Judkins and get a tour in there so you can see, and it's an older house, so I can't imagine that if it's leaking here, you're not gonna have the same problem over there. But to circle back lastly, briefly, with my frustration, if Joe Buckley is able to find someone for $19,000 to do half, that would suggest, what's $38,000 for the whole. You have state-approved contractors that are gouging this town for $74,000 to $94,000. Follow up on that with the state comptroller or whoever, state ethics even, and find out why they're putting the union squeeze on you. That's not right. That's not right. I refuse to believe that you cannot get a roof done for less than $25,000 when I have neighbors who just did it for half of that. So I think we're being victimized, and that's what's frustrating.
So if you could just be sure Joe gets all that information to us this week.
Are you asking me to have Joe stop the plan he's doing to fix the front part of the roof?
I
Are
don't
you
want,
asking me
I
to do
don't
that?
want them to actually start or sign anything until we have at least a chance to review all this information. Were they gonna start it this week?
I think he's starting right away. That's why I'm worried about stopping it when we're trying to get done before winter.
We don't have the story, and I don't wanna hear that we did $19,000, now the back is leaking. Do we figure out if it's $19,000 to do the
So-
whole roof for
I-
35,000, because if they're doing the whole thing, they don't have to come back and reset up.
So I
Then
guess,
do we can we find the money somewhere to do the whole roof then?
well,
If we have to go the route with who we're choosing, do we need to,
I don't
can we
want
do
it
the
to
whole
be,
roof?
I don't want it to be a $19,000 Band-Aid on something that we're eventually gonna have to spend whatever the cost of a new roof and whatever it is anyway. So that's my,
I'm okay, just I guess I would suggest that we need, if we're trying to get this done before winter, then we need a special meeting to discuss this. I don't wanna wait 2 more weeks when we're going into December. If this is that important, we should have a special meeting to discuss how to
If
move
we're
forward.
meeting
I'd hate to
Monday,
tell
we
Joe
can
just
do
to
it.
You
stop.
guys wanna
and
meet at 5:30 and early and then just
That's fine.
discuss the, just
I'll bring in
discuss it.
Joe,
You
we
okay
can
with
discuss it, cause he's the expert in this
So-
area, but
Yeah, so if we can set up to meet at 5:30 on Monday previous to see where
Cause
we're gonna
I
go
just
with
don't
this.
wanna.
But if he can get that information to us
Yeah.
this week so we can all review it,
Yep.
and then we'll be able to make a decision on Monday.
May I ask, I know you may not be the correct person to answer this, but even during roofing and things that might happen if things are gonna crash, are there any plans to remove temporarily the articles that are in the building?
Not that I've heard of, and we do have this on our agenda at the Historical Commission meetings, and it has not been mentioned.
It may be worth thinking about where we could put them even temporarily. I mean, those are.
I couldn't imagine where. Yeah. But to your last point, it sounds like if we're close to $35,000 roof, then maybe it's only a $10,000 problem, because you do have $25,000 in hand, and that could, free cash or something to make its way till There you go, reserve funds.
So the problem
It is an emergency.
Yeah, the problem is we can't use free cash right until the annual meeting now, so the only thing you could really tap is in reserve fund. Which is part of the original problem. When we first talked about this roof, the town had no money in the budget to fix the roof, so that's why we reached out to the state to try to get funding from the state, because we had no money in the budget to do it. But I get it, I'll talk to Joe and we'll get the special meeting and we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I'm sorry, did they do us? Let's see. We're going to go to the class 1, 2, 3 license renewals. Ron, do you know if we're doing these like one at a time or how how did we decide? Are we actually looking to see they sold vehicles? Is that what?
That's pretty much what they used to do in the past, and it'd be just as easy instead of bringing their books in, saying, "Yeah, I sold 5 cars last year," or 1 car, or "No, I didn't," or "He paid 10 cars," or "No cars." And besides, we have the chief of police and the fire department go down and inspect to make sure the places are set up right.
Right, which we do have the,
We have to sign off for that.
So, I mean, this used to be a pain in my neck all the years I've been on the board. This thing.
I'm with you.
But we're doing it.
so then how are we doing this?
You know, bring them up one at a time, look at the book, and pass it. It's just moving right along, right through.
26.
I'm trying to look at all the
So, Greg registration's on the front, right?
Yep, I see Greg.
Oh, Wozniak.
Yeah.
Well, you could do a start at the top, and look on top of your pile.
Yeah, I'm
Now
just
it's
going by
go
whatever's
these
on
paper.
here. There.
Come on
How
up.
you doing?
How you doing?
Jeff Wozniak from Man's RV.
I know you've been selling stuff.
What's that?
I know you've been selling
Yeah,
stuff, right?
no inventory left.
Well, we got a lot more inventory now.
Yeah?
Spent all summer buying stuff so I could sell it.
But you were able to get it.
Uh,
Unlike a
minus-
car, you can't buy a ambulance.
Well, I can understand that.
That's just the extra. Well, my understanding is we have to hold on to these originals and then Beth will get you certificates, just so, in case you think you're going home with any of them.
No, I know how the system works. We're good.
Want a motion to sign?
Wait a second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Wait a minute.
Nichols eye?
Thanks for coming
Thank you.
in. Your once a year pilgrimage.
Yes.
The probation check.
Kevin Lazzaro's?
Yeah, you're right on top of the file, second. You're doing well, eh?
It's not digital.
Yes, I have to have a paper copy. Don't ask me why.
I think they have digital now, though.
What's that?
I think they do have digital that's official, I think. I'm sure I can't afford it.
Thank you.
I'm just looking to see if there's any good vehicles on
All
this.
set? Have a nice day.
Thank you,
Jeff.
too.
And can I get a motion?
Motion to sign.
Do I have a second?
Wait a second.
And roll call?
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Wait a minute.
And Nichols eye. Congratulations, get your books are ready. All right, Gregory Ward.
Hello. How are you today?
Good, how are you? Thank you.
Good.
Hey, wait a minute, your book's small.
Yeah.
You gotta sell more.
Hard on stuff out.
Yeah, but he's got 3 on one page.
Oh, there you
So
go.
he condensed it to make it look, you know, neat and tidy.
All right, can we get a
Motion
motion?
to sign.
And do I have a second?
Wait a second.
And then
Clock eye.
roll call?
Benoit, aye?
Restorations.
Whitman, I.
And Nichols, aye.
Old.
Yeah, very old stuff.
And you wouldn't be doing
Thank
it by anybody else that you're putting a lot of money
Thank
into.
you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks.
I've heard you
All right.
did work. I suppose you told me you did a great job.
David,
Try.
I'm sorry, is it Shricko? Shricko?
Correct.
Shricko? Is David here?
Don't see him.
Hmm.
Huh?
He's usually here.
Oh, yeah, he usually is. Maybe he's running late, who knows?
I've appreciated your social media posts as you are
Oh.
updating some of your work.
Thanks. No, we try to put out everything we do. So, the lights will be on the tow truck. I'll be this week too.
Awesome.
So,
Very cool.
bye
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for coming in.
Ralph Calorario? Calorario? How do you say it? You know the name?
Calorario.
Yep. No,
Who are
Ralph?
we looking at?
Anthony's auto, I think.
Oh, yeah, Anthony's,
Yep.
I don't know how to say the last name.
I don't see him.
No, he's not here either.
Alright.
What's his? It's Bobo. Bobo Calerio.
Alright. I guess put those on the next agenda.
So we're holding the custom in Anthony's?
Yes.
Oh.
I think there's still one more that has to come in too. It's not completed, so.
Okay.
And Seth, I saw the note that you did all the inspections. Thank you for doing those, because I know that was one of my concerns. If we weren't doing the building inspections, to still have eyes on the facilities, so thank you.
absolutely.
Alright. Next on the agenda is change of management for Rutland Sportsman Club LLA. Approval required for ABCC. Vote to approve manager change. So we have somebody from the Sportsman Club?
Chris Wiley, 16 F.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. So we just have to vote on a change in managers?
Yep.
Is that what
Just, yeah, it's a requirement.
So moved.
So the new manager is Christopher Wiley? Is that
Correct.
correct? Okay. So moved. Do we have a second?
Whitman seconds.
Clark, aye.
Benoit, aye?
Whitman, I.
And Nichols, aye. Where do we sign this? Ron, do you know where we sign this?
Right now. Way down there.
Oh, so we all sign this?
Locally.
Yep, we'll all sign it.
I imagine Beth needs the original back, and then we'll get you a copy as well, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and then the donation to the police department from Devereaux. Do you have somebody from Devereaux?
Hi folks, can you hear me? It's Carrie Ann Goldsmith.
Hi, welcome.
Mr. Wong?
Thank you so much for putting Devereaux on the agenda. First, I want to say happy holidays. I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I think most folks have known that Devereaux's been providing special education services and mental health and behavioral health services for actually 56 years in Rutland.
Wow.
I know, I hear them, I say, wow, because many community members actually worked at Devereaux through the years, family or friends that have worked here. And we are very grateful to be part of the town of Rutland. It's really important for Devereaux to have a positive, strong relationship in our community, particularly for our kids and the students that we serve. And although COVID impacted our community activities this past year, almost 2 years now, we still even appreciate the smallest positive community experiences, because ultimately these childhood memories are what our students will remember, and positive ones. So we're very thankful for that. I wanted to share a couple of the memories and opportunities that we had over this last year. One of my favorite was Chief Monaco always invites a couple of Devereaux students and staff to the Rutland 5K 9 race. And so we had a couple of students participate. And one particular student, although moments during the race when he was ready to stop and was unsure of himself, persevered and came out on top. And he, at the end, actually won a trophy for finishing within the best time for an individual under the age of 12. And after he said, and this still just hits me, he said, wow, I've never won a trophy before. I've never won a trophy in my life. And Devereaux community, Rutland community gave that trophy to that child. And so that's the experience that Rutland community gives to our youth. And I'm so grateful that this young student had that opportunity. So I want to say thank you for that. The other things that we've embarked on this year, I'm not sure if folks know, but we actually have just completed a long overdue construction of a new student residence on our campus. And it was a long process and one that was overdue. We have a number of older residents on our campus that needed to be retired. And I just want to say thank you to Rutland's building commissioner, David McCrae, and Chief Snipe and Monaco for their support and oversight of this project. I am happy to say that students moved in over the last week, and we will be having a ribbon cutting ceremony at some point, trying to figure out the COVID situation, and plan on inviting folks up to that. So great appreciation for the town on the support. Another appreciation is really to Chief Knipe and his team for assisting with COVID vaccinations. Our nursing staff were able to do that, but the town also just supported those that couldn't come to our vaccination clinics. So I just want to say thank you very much to the town for that, and Chief Knipe in particular. And then the last exciting little activity that we had is we were able to invite a few folks from the police department to our first annual Cultural Diversity Festival. Some of the officers got to enjoy some authentic food made by our staff from Jamaica, Puerto Rico, Colombia, and local New England dishes. And I think it's probably gonna be a moment they're gonna remember for a while because the food was fantastic. And we're also in the process of trying to schedule training on autism, working with youth that have autism with the police department and surrounding town police departments. We try to do this every couple of years, given new officers that come in the door and just as refreshers. So we're excited about finalizing those details and being able to provide that training to the officers. I've highlighted previously in past years that our positive relationship with the town is not just based on history because we're here. It's truly an ongoing effort with open communication, both things that are going well and things that need to be looked at. And I greatly appreciate that level of communication that we have with the town, and look forward to continued commitment to our successful partnership. Devereaux obviously is a supporter of all the local businesses. We have over 400 employees, and so we support many of the local businesses. And that's one way that we give back to the town. But as a nonprofit, as you know, we always must maintain close oversight of our finances, and annually we assess our fiscal health. Although this has been a difficult year because our census is low because we can't get staffing in the door because of COVID and other issues. We always try to prioritize being able to support particularly the town, but particularly the police department. And I'm happy to highlight that this year we're making another significant gift to the town, specific to support the police department for $42,000. Devereaux serves some of the state's most vulnerable children and families. And this surrounding community is their home, where memories are made. And I am thankful for the town's support and all of you embracing our work. I know there's challenges that come along with that, but I think in comparison to other towns, we make it work, and we have solid communication in ensuring that we work together closely. So I very much look forward to our continued relationship with the Rutland community, and I hope that when we have more ability to get out in the community, that we have more opportunities for engagement with our students in the town. So wishing the Rutland community a happy holiday. Thank you specifically to Chief Monaco, who has been really just amazing in supporting our staff, our students, and his department as well, and ensuring that we kind of work through some difficult obstacles and be positive. So Thank you, and I hope that donation helps in any way that it can.
Well, thank you very much on behalf of the town. We very much appreciate these funds. We obviously can always use them. And we are very proud of both of our police and our fire chiefs for the work that they do in the community. And I do see a lot of the activities that they do at Devereaux. I was particularly interested in the training for the autism. Is that strictly for the police, or is that something the fire can participate in as well? Or
Yeah, no, we will open that up to anyone that's interested in the town. I think I don't know if Nick is present, but we've done it before, and I'm not sure if the fire department has been involved, but they are absolutely more than welcome, as well as anybody else who is just interested. We're just trying to finalize dates and times on that.
It's Leo.
And we'll. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask if we could add dispatch in. I think I had asked previously. Nick's here and nodding his head yes. I know I had asked previously about including dispatch in also just to help as they triage calls and everything. So thank you for all the work that you do up there. I know it's been a really tough year plus with COVID and everything. I was looking forward to working on a couple of the town committees with you, and then I know COVID hit and it got kind of derailed. So thank you for all the work that you've done and the appreciation. And I think our chiefs do a great job keeping the connectivity to the community, and I appreciate that also. So thank you, Chief Monaco and Chief Knight.
Absolutely.
Finish this.
Ron, did you have?
No, I want to go back to a previous discussion, but I want to finish this first.
Okay. Does anybody else on the board have any comments? Or if I can get a motion to accept the grant funds?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Whitman seconds with appreciation.
So roll call.
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman, aye.
And Nichols' eye with much appreciation. Thank you so much.
Chief Monaco, I'll be down at the police department hopefully tomorrow with a letter and the check. So.
He has something he wants to say, I believe.
Oh, okay. My apologies.
Can you hear me, Carrie Ann?
I can.
I just wanted to say thank you very much. This donation goes a long way in supporting the department and allowing us to operate at a professional level. It's very much appreciated. So thank you.
Absolutely. You're more than welcome. I'm happy that we're able to do it again this year.
Thank you. Enjoy the holidays.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Yeah. Happy holidays, guys. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to, if you don't mind, with the respect to the board, if you can go back to that roof discussion for a minute, because now the questions are being fired at me. I'm thinking about it some more, and I want to be clear. So a couple of issues as I'm thinking about it more. And you asked for the 3 estimates, because the requirement is to get 3 estimates for the roof. I'm guessing that Joe took the 2 estimates off the state bid list at the outrageous money and got the 3rd estimate more locally. So that probably is the other 2 estimates. Secondly, I want to be clear that as I'm thinking about it, on Wednesday, Joe emailed me and said the solution of this roof, that he had the front part of the roof, and I think he said it was about approximately $19,000. And was I okay with it? And my answer was yes. So I think Joe's moving forward. And I don't know if he's signing with a contract or anything else, but on Wednesday he did ask me when he brought forward that solution, because he was trying to get it done for winter. He did ask me if I was okay with it, and the answer was yes. So I'll check and find out exactly where we're at tomorrow, but I wanted to be clear about that, because now that I've had a second to think about it, I recall the conversations.
If he did get 2 of them off the bid list, that concerns me. I'd rather have seen 3 local bids where we knew it was a high bid as it was. I want to see local contractors have an opportunity.
And I'll check with him, but the requirement by state law is to get 3 quotes, so he got effectively 3.
We don't want to just meet requirements. We want to get the job.
I understand.
Done.
Let me check with him.
I would much rather see.
I'm thinking that's probably what happened, but I will check with Joe and let you know.
And if that's what he does historically, I prefer it not be done that way, and just taken off the list, that we look and try to get some local bids, especially when we get to a point where we're going out to bid like that.
I agree, and I don't have a problem with that. I just think that he was trying to get this done before winter, and that was why he was pressuring the speed of this all so much. But I just wanted to kind of let you know my further thoughts and a chance to think about it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, next is discussion and possible action on assessor assistant salary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I brought this to the board's attention, and I don't know if we want to deal with this issue tonight or not, but I felt it was an important issue that we brought it for discussion. As I think the board is aware, we have a outside vendor who does assessment services for the town. We only have one person that is a town employee who works in that office. And the concern when what we had, just so the public understands what's going on here, is the person who was serving as the, I forget the exact title, assistant assessor, whatever that position is called, is now taking the position as the assistant town clerk. And it was a promotional kind of thing for her. We hired inside, which left this position open again. My concern was when this was brought to my attention, we posted it at the salary that was currently, and that salary was a salary of $16.34. I think as the board realizes, and I think public realizes right now, is that out in the marketplace it's very difficult to get employees, and the salaries are frankly being bumped up at all levels because of just the squeeze on jobs right now. So it's very, very difficult not only to attract quality candidates, but to attract candidates in general. So I brought this, we posted the position out for $16.34 an hour, but I wanted to have the discussion with the board members because what this position turns out to be, it's a 28-hour-a-week position. It turns out to be a stepping stone. So we get people that come in part-time. The minute a full-time or a higher-paying job comes up, they leave this position and automatically move to the higher-paying position. The Board of Assessors and the chairman is here, and I are concerned that this is a very important position, being the face of the town for the Assessor Department. And that transition, where these employees keep leaving, means it takes a long time to retrain an employee in this position. Frankly, it's expensive to train employees, and it's hard to hold on to employees because they keep leaving this position. The chairman, Jeffrey Gibbs, is here of the Board of Assessors tonight, because after I brought it to your attention, he came to me and started talking about what a major problem this was and kind of agreed with all the things that I had thought, and was very appreciative that I had brought this forward to the board for consideration. I've had discussions with some of the members of the Board of Selectmen, and the frustrating part is that when the world changes and salaries jump up, it's suddenly like they do now, and you have to hire people at today's asking price, so to speak, marketplace, it puts everybody else out of whack, because all of a sudden now you're asking for a higher salary than people that were already serving the position. So, for instance, this assessor person served the position a year and a half and made that salary. And now she's leaving, and we want to bring somebody in new at a higher salary than she made. And it seems grossly unfair, right? And the marketplace isn't level because the markets change and things happen during a period of time. So we're trying to adapt to the real world situation. And I have to agree, it is unfair. It doesn't sound fair to the people. It doesn't sound equal. And people say to me, well, people have been here for a long time and the salaries don't seem to mesh. And that's true. But the reality is that the marketplace kind of determines salaries at any given point in time, and I think it's something we have to consider and able to get the best quality candidate we can for a particular position. And with that, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, the Chairman of the Board of Assessors would like to address this issue. Is it okay to recognize him for that point of the discussion?
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Gibbs.
Jeffrey Gibbs, 1 Sumac Circle. I'm the Chairman of the Board of Assessors. And it's very discouraging. I've been on the board for, I don't even remember, 6, 7 years, maybe even longer, I don't know. But it seems like every year, year and a half, 2 years, we're either losing an assessor or we're losing the administrative support. And it's taking us a long time to train these people. And then when I finally saw that Candace, who was doing a great job for us, was leaving, and I guess on the top of my head, I wasn't paying attention to what she was making, but when asked, it was 16 something an hour, and the job she was going to was $20. We're losing somebody within the same building, and I'm sure it's a great stepping stone for her, but why is there a $4 difference on somewhat, I don't know the other job, but this job that she's doing is very important. Without money coming in through the assessors, this town doesn't operate. And she does an awful lot for us in handling the public and follow-up and all kinds of things. And I bet you a lot of people don't even realize, and I don't know if with the assistant town clerk's position, whether she's going to have to take a class, certification class, but you have to take that to be on the board. Myself had to take it. It was a week-long class out of UMass. I had to take off from work, which I didn't realize when I ran for this office. Just an FYI for anybody that's running for it. But second, she had to do the same thing. Now you can do it online. So there's a lot of training and certification that goes into just this position. And there's a lot of jobs out there at $16.50 an hour with, you probably don't need as much talent or qualifications or whatever it might be. And to be losing somebody every year is just, it's just not right. Especially within, it's one thing if they go to another town, but to lose people within our own town, people within our own town is just frustrating. It's very frustrating. And one of the things, because I said to her, I said, would you stay if we found the money, some miracle happened? And she says, probably not, because I'm just frustrated with the turnover. And I don't blame her. And this just has to be solved. And I get it, everybody's tight on money, but if we don't have an assessor's office running smoothly, there's no money coming into this town. You know, it's really important. So I hope you consider increasing that hourly rate. I don't know what, I mean, we're paying, her job she's going to is $20 something. I feel as though it should be close to that. I know the other towns around us, and we can get from RRG, what other towns are paying if we need that. But I think we need to at least go up a couple dollars at least.
So when you're talking about she was frustrated with the turnover, what turnover is she frustrated with?
Well, we lost the assessor's position. That's been turned over, which we per se can't handle. I mean, that's RRG. They're hired through RRG. But she's frustrated with that. And, the person before, left, wasn't there that long either.
Right, but she wasn't there, so I just
no,
that's why
I know,
didn't
but
understand
then she
the
had to
frustration
go
there.
through the training. It took her it's taken her a year to get where she is today. And it's frustrating for us as board members. I mean, I've been on the board for 70 years, and I still don't know everything about assessing. I rely on these people to know things, and they do. There's certain qualifications to do that job.
My frustration is we paid a lot of money for a matrix. The whole reason that we had a matrix is we were supposed to have a system to qualify people with steps and grades, and you don't just bring somebody in for a certain amount of money. If somebody comes in with certification, somebody comes in with education, you don't just pay more money to get people. So I need to understand the system, because this just makes the matrix that much worse. We just hired an assistant clerk for one that we had 5 years experience, and we're paying at the same level, but there's no certification or education. So the system doesn't work. There's a huge problem with the matrix, and that's why we need to correct the continuing problems of people that currently work for the town who have not been paid appropriately. And there needs to be a mechanism to say, this is what we will pay you based on education, experience, or whatever, not just a position and a salary. It's got to be based on some kind of a matrix. That's what I thought the matrix was supposed to do. And we paid a lot of money back then to have that created, and I don't see how that has done us any favors through this process.
I struggle, if I may, I don't discredit the fact that this position and all the positions should be paid more than they are. But I struggle that, similar to what's been happening, is we're essentially saying to all of our current employees, leave, we'll post your exact same position for a higher rate, and then come back and we'll hire you at a higher rate, and that's how you're going to get raises. I think it's a slippery slope, and I don't have an answer, because I agree that everyone should be, I think that, and that was part of it, was this matrix was set, I don't know how many years ago. That was one of my questions, that I think I looked briefly at one or two of the positions were below the minimum wage now. So they were never adjusted for current day cost of living and inflation and everything else that we've been doing. So it's a big systemic issue, and that's part of what I was saying, why I want to understand the matrix and the job descriptions and the positions and what it takes to get to those, not just, in some cases, not just the number of years or number of years of service or whatever. So I feel like we're between a rock and a hard place. I don't discredit the fact that all of these positions are worth more than what we're paying. And also, we have to start somewhere, and we start here, then we risk losing all of our other employees who are going to say, well, we can leave, and they're going to post a position for $2 to $4 more an hour, and I can come back and reapply. So,
I mean, I think a huge part is that the matrix was never followed correctly, and where we have a really big weakness is we have no HR. Really,
Right.
we don't have a human resource person that is really able to focus on these issues. And how we're going to resolve that, I don't know. Is it going to be like just pay more for people as they leave, or do we invest in having somebody that's going to handle this going forward and equitably and correct this problem? And I think that's something that as a board we need to look at.
right.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, I don't disagree with a word you said. HR directors would help to do that. I think part of the problem has been budget issues for the last number of years where the town was forced to make budget cuts to the town side of government, and this is always an area where it gets hammered hard, particularly the non-union employees are the ones that get hammered. And as you say, it's weird because some people, for instance, the current or the former assistant town clerk didn't get steps, so the salary was kept lower than it should have been. So, that's why I think it's important that we do stick with the classification schedule, stick with the step raises, and not change them even during difficult budget times, because it causes this kind of chaos. So, I don't, truthfully, as I brought it on the table because I wanted to have this discussion, and I didn't know if we're going to have a solution at all tonight. We came up, just me and the treasurer collector came up going from 1634 to 1878 an hour, just to make the positions a little bit more valuable to attract somebody. It's not outrageous, still less than what the person that was in the assessor's office is now going to make it $20 an hour in the assistant clerk's position. This was our way of trying to deal with the problem, but it clearly is not the right solution. I will say this though, these matrices, if you do follow the step process, if you do, generally work. This year is an exception, and I think we all recognize that the salaries have just gone crazy with inflation and with people getting great benefits on unemployment. They're out of whack from what is the norm. So this year I think is an aberration in terms of how bad these wage schedules have been knocked out of place. So I don't think that's the norm, but I do think it is a big problem this year.
So
anyway, it's up to the
I'll
board.
just ask you one thing: when you hire someone, do you have a system? Do you just because we advertise it for a salary,
Yep.
doesn't mean we bring them in that salary?
That's
Do you
correct.
have a system to say this much more if you have an education, if you have certifications? Is there a system that you're using that you determine what that
So
salary is
I
going
don't
to
know
be?
if you could call it a system, but we usually when you do these kind of positions, you put in a range, if you have a range available. Now, we can only put in the amount budgeted, which is usually an employee, as was suggested, as higher seniority. So usually it's we can put into the budget up until that amount is the top amount. If a candidate comes in who has no experience, we offer at the low range. If they come in with equal experience, then we might hire something higher, depending upon the candidate's in. Now, in this position, we had such a low salary, there's no range. You just had to put the $16 out. That's the best we could even attract somebody. But in any higher position, you're right. We give a range and we pick within a range depending upon qualifications.
But even this position should be at a certain base. That,
It's hard because
like any.
it's like I say, 1634 is slightly above minimum wage, so there's not a lot of range to play with. I mean, if 1634 was the highest of the range, I don't think people would say, oh, I can make less than $16 an hour, or did it even lower the amount of attraction to this position?
And how many hours is this?
So this is a 28-hour position. It's currently at 1634. Our suggestion was 1878. It goes from an OAD2 to an OAD3, and the difference is $2,322.88. Now, I want to be clear, there's another problem here. We only have budgeted position at the $16.54 an hour. So, if we do this at the end of the year, we're going to come up short, and the Finance Committee would have to be willing to work with us to do a transfer from some other line at the end of the year to do this. Now, we could do it from reserve. I'm not suggesting we do that because reserve may be for other things, and we're better waiting for the last couple of months where we can do transfers to make this adjustment. But in theory, if you wanted to, you could take the money from reserve right now and make this work. But if the Finance Committee was willing to work with us, I would say let's not take it from reserve now. Let's see if we can find other sources by the end of the year and make the adjustment.
And this position includes benefits, right?
This position includes anything over 20 hours,
right.
includes
So this is
benefits.
benefited
Yep.
salary.
I heard earlier that you were asking Amy if she was available because we have 6 candidates.
Yeah, we just got,
looking.
we
So
haven't,
I they saw the salary, right?
Right.
So,
So that's what I did, I wanted to point it out, and I did at the beginning of the conversation. We have like 6 or 7 applications for the position who did in fact see the salary. I have not yet reviewed those apps because we haven't had the closing date to where they can turn those in. So that's probably something I'll be doing tomorrow, the next day, to evaluate all those and look at the quality of the candidates. I've asked Amy to be involved since she's our assessor in theory, and I want her to be involved because she would know the qualifications even better than me. I have the job description, but I'd like to hear her thoughts on it before I make the final decision as well. So that's where we are, but I have not reviewed those applicants yet because it hasn't closed yet.
So have you even looked at them? So do any of them have experience?
I haven't looked at
Assessors?
any of them
There's no
yet.
idea.
Yeah, until they close, I don't like to kind of do it until they close. I want to give everybody a fair and equal shot, and I don't want to have decisions in my head before I get everybody.
In my opinion, if you bring somebody that has all these glowing, that really fits the job, that has certifications already or other things that warrant a higher salary, and you come to us and say, I feel this is really a great candidate that has the qualifications, certifications, or whatever, but if they came and they applied at that salary, I don't think, why are we considering going at a higher salary unless you interview them and look at their resumes to see that somebody warrants more money? I'm not quite sure.
Right.
Yeah, Nancy Nichols, 5 Lizzie Lane. You also increase their responsibilities by increasing that, by moving the OAD2 up to an OAD3. Unless you're actually going to increase their responsibilities, how do you do that? So maybe that could be a reason for justifying the price increase, but you're gonna give them more responsibility.
I mean, I understand where you're coming from as far as, it's a very minimal wage, but like I said, we've seen some interest, so are we at the point yet that we're looking that we should be paying more until we know what we're actually?
I would almost say it's like, this is the base, and it could go up based on experience or qualifications or whatever. I'm doing a quick search, and it looks like there's a couple unionized positions that are about in the $20 an hour range. So we're lower than that. These are bigger, wealthier towns that have that as posting. So I don't think we're totally off. I also wonder maybe is it more than has it gotten to the point that it really realistically is a more than a 28-hour per week position? And I don't know, the town's growing, and I assume that there's a lot of work, and so I don't know, I haven't had the conversation with Candace. Is it solely money? Is it the hours? Is it the position? What else goes into it? I mean, I agree that there's been a lot of turnover and it's not good for that position at all. But I wonder if there's additional pieces.
And then I think that getting the benefits is a huge attraction to people because it's not full-time.
Right.
And getting
Still
health
benefit.
benefits are very valuable and important for a lot of people, and it's going to attract some interest as well. Like I said, I'm not disagreeing that somebody's might be worth this, but I don't see why we're just going to all of a sudden say, we're going to pay more until we see who, if you haven't reviewed the applicants yet, and you find that there's somebody that has qualifications, or even say, like Jeff said, they need to get certifications and stuff. Well, once you get the certifications, we'll look at,
Bonus or something.
reason to increase. But somebody just coming off with, green and having no experience, I don't see why we would just all of a sudden jump the salary.
And again, Mr. Chairman, I brought it up for discussion. I truly wasn't, if you had a solution or felt comfortable with a solution, I'm okay, but I understand your point of view. After we do that, I can say to the person, I'm gonna have to hire the person for $16 an hour. But I think what you're saying to me, if I find somebody that's highly qualified, that you would reconsider maybe increasing that salary a little bit.
There's justifications.
If I can
and
come back to you with
incentives.
justification of why this person's there.
I mean, we can, would the board be?
As Leah has said, everybody deserves a lot more money, and we need to look at the whole system. Morale is already in the bucket for our employees, and I think if we say, okay, this person's gonna now come in at $20 an hour, and if there's a job description change, I think that needs to be looked at and approved as well. I mean, I can't just change the job description to fit somebody else's qualifications. So I think that we need to accelerate the timeline to get this fixed. And that person might come in and in 4 months, we might have fixed it all and they're gonna get a raise anyway, so.
Just to be clear, I sent this job description out to our RRG to ask them what they thought about it, and they thought the job description as written was very good.
Okay.
I do think we this goes also into the whole, like, reevaluating the matrix and everything. We need to be better about trying to maintain staff, because there is a cost, a rather significant cost to the high turnover. And so you can argue you can possibly hire someone at a lower rate, but there's that onboarding cost also. And so I think that that's not a valid way to look at things, and we need to be more mindful as to what we can do to maintain and staff and have those conversations, and hopefully the review process provides an opportunity for that dialogue, what's working, what's not, for the employee to hear, but also for the employee to provide that feedback for the town to hear, because I think sometimes there's that disconnect.
Just one more.
Jeff and then Jeff.
Thank you.
Sorry.
First, Jeff. Jeff Stillings, 3 Lord Lane. 3 quick points. Every time I go into the town hall, I see the young lady in question. She's busy. She's always busy, you know, stops to say hello. So I have no doubt that whatever hours that you're affording is she's working. So I do see that. Secondly, we did hear from the assessor himself, and he said that they're in the process of redoing the rates, so you can anticipate at least some raised revenue from that, right? Because, you know, the assessments will go up. They're not going down that much we know. And lastly, this week I was in Greenfield, Mass, and we stopped through the Wendy's drive-thru, and their sign starts at $17 an hour at Wendy's. So there is hope. I think we need to stop being the training ground for the, you know, if we learn nothing from Neil Viner, we're hurting. We're hurting because of that. And so anyways, you guys are in the solution business. I think if you up it to at least the reasonable rate or what's comparable for the surrounding towns, you'll make up for it in the different assessments, and you need to fix that leak, you know. So, and she's a loss, but she's also a gain for the town clerk.
Jeff?
Well, and just minimum wage is going up to 14 and a quarter January 1st. So we've kept this position at the same rate, and the outside world is going up 75 cents per hour, and we're not doing anything on our end. So I mean, and like Jeff said, Wendy's, you can go $17. I overheard some kids talking going down to Walmart for $19. Now, I don't know if there's benefits there. I'm sure if they work full time there is, but it's just crazy, and I understand. But just the minimum wage is going up 75 cents, and we're not even addressing that piece of it. You know, with a 75-cent increase for the bottom. So.
It's up to you. It's them.
My problem is the $17 or whatever from these other places. Are they getting insurance? Are they getting insurance? Are they getting all the benefits the town gives them? I doubt it.
No.
So don't, you know, cry to $17 and whatever or what for all the benefits they're getting. No.
I mean, like I said, I don't feel that we're ready to even consider this. We haven't really looked at the candidates, and we have a handful of them to see. I mean, I don't know what the rest of the board feels.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on.
I think it's a holistic issue that we need to look at, and it seems to be coming up by position, and that's part of the reason I've been pushing to try to get it to look at so we can have kind of a plan in place, because it seems like this is just adding to further the divide in morale and everything also. So I'm reluctantly happy to keep this hourly rate for right now, and then look at the candidates, and if there's some ones that have great experience or something, then potentially reconsider, but also kind of fast track the whole reevaluation of the matrix and job descriptions and everything, so that we know people are coming in with limited experience and this is what you're gonna make, and then
Right.
or whatever.
We're just fixing the COLA.
Right.
So, I mean, I agree, they all need to be making more, and we need to figure out what that is and how to quickly get there.
And after I do the interviews, if I feel it's necessary to bring it back for reconsideration, I'll bring it back.
And I'm sorry to the assessors, I mean, I feel like
Equity.
we're between a rock and a hard place. I mean,
It's not us, it's the town. You know, yeah.
It is. I mean,
Well,
It's our
we gotta work on
responsibility, and
fixing the
we're
matrix.
taking
Right.
it now.
And at some point, I mean, maybe we'll find that position is gonna warrant to be.
right.
And, you know, once we get working through them all, but yeah, we need to correct some issues. All right, so we'll move on for now on that. Letter of interest of candidates to be appointed to the Cultural Council. We have the letters of interest. We have an email from the board. Does anybody have any questions about any candidates?
No. You need members badly.
I was gonna say, I'd love to see the renewed interest in this commission, so, council.
So you wanna just somebody wanna make a motion, either both or individually, however you want?
May I just ask, are these, they're asking for 3-year, are they indeed 3-year terms?
Are they 3-year terms, Ron? I believe so. Right?
On the Culture Commission, I'm not sure how it's structured, Master.
And just, I mean, I've brought this up in other cases too. It looks like this is a husband-wife team, and I've had questions in the past as to kind of, in other boards and commissions appointments, having a husband-wife team on the same, serving on the same board or commission as school members, only because, you know, but, well, that, but also just as far as votes and discussion and everything. I don't know, I mean, and my understanding is the town has no policy, so as far as that goes, so, I know the, cultural council is,
It's a 3-year term.
right,
On the sheet.
I mean, I can see that on certain boards and commissions, but I personally don't have a problem with a couple on this board. That's just my personal.
I just wanted to bring it up and point it
Right,
out
and
because
I
I
can,
haven't
like,
in
yeah.
the past also, so.
Like I said, I could see on certain boards, especially with the somewhat of conflict.
And we have the chair's recommendation to appoint both
Right.
officers.
So you wanna make a motion?
Motion to appoint Timothy and Jessica Cannon to the Board of Rutland Culture Council
For 3 years.
for 3 years.
Whitman seconds.
All right, roll call.
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman, aye.
And Nichols, aye. Thank you. All right. And this is the creation of the Economic Development Commission. Vote to approve creation of commission. Letters of interest of candidates to be appointed by Economic Development Commission. Vote to approval appointments.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
As you know, I've sent the board out a lot of information on this back some time ago and as recently as today. Really believe that if you're trying to spur economic development, that we need to have an organization in town that works to that end, that looks for opportunities to expand economic development opportunities. As I said to you, I had 4 members up until today. I've been working on getting that 5th of the 7 members, and I'm very pleased that Jeff Gibbs agreed today to join the board. So we have 5 members and 1 alternate, so we'll still continue to look for 2 more members and 1 more alternate going forward. But I feel very strongly we have a phenomenal board to start, and we can continue to work on that board. The vice chair has the document that I sent to you today for the purpose of motion. I thought it was in the books, but it turned out it's not in your books.
This?
No, I'm talking about the actual, I sent it out to you,
Oh,
the
the other-
lineup of the members on the board and commission and stuff, so that the vice chair can read it as part of a motion if you wanna move forward with this. I think we all agreed that this was something that was important, and we wanna start with it. Myself and David George, and others will be supportive of that board. One of the positive things that this board will have that other boards don't always have is that one of the things that you can use for ARPA funds is money for tourism and increasing tourism. So this commission is a group that we want to work with, along with my committee that I've developed to recommend to the Board of Selectmen how we spend ARPA funds. But the committee I have has already suggested that we were going to put some money away for economic development and creation of tourism. As you know, restaurants took a huge hit. Tourist attractions took a huge hit during COVID. Inns, I know we only have 1 in town, but took a huge hit. This allows us to do a lot of things in terms of attracting tourism to the town. So I have some suggestions. And as you know, Mr. Chairman, you just held up a document which is a document I put together some time ago that I'm gonna meet with the Economic Development Commission when we start it, which hopefully will be within a week, and go over that document, which outlines some of the thoughts I have for how we move forward with economic development. Again, it's not my decision to make, but theirs, but I wanna work with them to give recommendations and be supportive of them.
This is online, correct?
That is on, I think that's on the
Website.
town webpage as well. So I think this is a phenomenal start. I'm extremely impressed with the membership that we have so far of this group. As you know, the one position that's a little bit different is that one of the members, this commission allows for one member to be a business person who doesn't necessarily live in Rutland, because as you know, a lot of our business owners don't necessarily live in Rutland, so there's one position. And I specifically made that a position from outside of Rutland to be made by the Board of Selectmen, so they would have very strict control over who that person is. In particular, the recommendations, the manager of the Cornerstone Bank, who I think is a tremendous addition to this board. Obviously, banking is a big part when any business wants to expand or, come into town. They're looking at people with that particular expertise. We have a realtor on the board, we have business people on the board, we have a local farmer. Our town moderator, who I think is exceptional, has agreed to be on this board. So I'm very, very happy with the way this is set up. And hopefully, as people see how well this group works, that will be easier to attract 2 or 3 more members to this board, 2 regulars and 1 alternate. So that's what I'm bringing forward, Mr. Chairman. As I promised you at the last meeting, we would be bringing it forward for that discussion tonight. And again, the Vice Chairman has the actual document on her computer, so she can read the actual, what the formal motion would be and what the positions are and stuff. And of course, you have all the letters of interest in your books. Those are all there, and I think it's a good group. I was laughing at Select Woman's comments, Whiteman, because, and I don't even know if there's still an interest, but it was suggested to me Jeff's wife might also be interested, which is a husband-wife team. So I was kind of laughing. I was going to bring forward to you. I don't know if that's for sure yet, but there might be an interest of her joining this board as well. And that I think would be an asset. What's that? That may be something I come back to you as another member.
Maybe when you tell her, you won't be a husband and wife.
Yeah, so it could all work out.
Yeah. So that's it. I think this is a great start, and I think we have a lot of work to do, but I think this group knows what to do, and I think we'll be very good in this area.
Do you have any questions?
So these 1-year terms, any of the terms, they are gonna end on June 30, 2022.
All of them end June 30th of the year,
So
yeah.
they're basically.
Now, I want to be clear
7
here that, this is the creation of a board. These members are set up for different terms. I did that because I wanted the terms to rotate, so we don't lose members. But people, they don't even know what this board's like yet, so they may not want to fill that 3-year term after. So we may have to do some, not adjustments to the term, but adjustments of people, because, some people gave the specific terms, others didn't. But this kind of gets us started, and we can play with who the people are as we go along. But nobody knows what this is going to be like yet, so.
I just wanted to confirm that it'll end on June 30th, even though it's starting now. That it
Yeah,
wasn't
each of those 3 years
It
will end on
wasn't
June
like a
30th.
fiscal, it
Yeah.
was an annual.
Yep.
Our fiscal, the school.
That's why I dictated the terms specifically in there, so that we have that, and so that we don't lose a big part of the board all at once. We have experienced people a lot of times on the board.
I have to make this up because there's no
But if you just read I guess I would suggest to you,
committee
you move the
memberships.
creation of an economic development commission with those members and terms, and they have explanations, like for instance, that one saying it's a member by the Board of Selectmen. So if you just kind of read the chart, I think and put it into the record, it'll be clear what it is.
I'd like to make a motion that the board agree to set up and appoint a commission to be known as the Economic Development Commission. And the board member or designee will consist of 1 representative. Let me just read the chart instead, like you said. So there's currently, looks like 5 positions with 1 alternate at this point. We have a Board of Selectmen member designee, and this is a non-resident of the town, by Jessica Johnson, 3-year term. Representative of the agricultural community, Randy Johnson, for a 2-year term. Randy Jordan, I don't know what I just said.
Johnson.
Randy Jordan. Thinking as I'm going, because I thought that his paper didn't say, I thought it said a 3-year on the back.
It does.
This is a 3-year term?
3-year term, he's listed as 2-year
We could,
term.
if you wanted to, we could switch the terms with
I
with
just
Jessica, but
saw
don't
that
think
there
it
was a
makes big
discrepancy,
difference.
so,
Yeah, it's just what he requested, you can do anything you want, but that's what he requested. If we want to change him with
Change
Jessica and
him
make
to
the
a
terms 3 and 2, that's
3-year
fine
term?
too.
If I, sorry, Jessica has selected as 1 year.
so we don't have this terms are not,
Like I said, the terms are kind of there, but I said that's more for the position than it is for the person, because that's gonna adjust as it plays.
So on this, Jessica shows expires 2022. And he shows 2024.
okay, so this looks like it's very. Strike that.
Yeah, I think the one that we're signing that Beth prepared, I think is correct.
We have Randy Jordan, term expiring June 30th, 2024. Anthony Santoro, term expiring June 30th, 2023. Jeff Gibbs, term expiring June 30, 2023. Elizabeth Callahan, term expiring June 30th, 2022. Jessica Johnson, term expiring June 30, 2022. Bonnie Bessie as an alternate with the term expiring June 30, 2022. And help me with his name. Joseph
I'm gonna help you.
News. Go ahead, Tamika. Yes, you got it. As a
Wow.
DPW rep, term expiring June 30, 2022. Oh my goodness. Jessica Gagnon, term.
Yeah, but those are the two for the
Oh, that's
cultural.
cultural,
we already did.
sorry.
Yep, so
Same-
That's
same
that,
sheet.
that's like-
Stop.
well, they added the cultural ones on
What's
this.
that?
Second.
Second.
Wait, before you do that, even though there's no positions in there, the creation is for a 7-member board. Leave
Yes.
those other 2 positions open, that just announce those 3 positions,
Okay.
the 2 regulars,
Will do,
and empty as open members,
will do.
so we can add without coming back to the board.
There are currently 2 open positions, one of the planning board member or a designee for a 3-year term. And the other is a resident to represent the community at large, which is a 1-year term.
And the alternate.
And the
Well,
alternate,
Is Bonnie, right?
no, there's 2.
Oh, there's 2 openings.
Um,
Second.
Another alternate resident to represent the community at large, which is another 1-year term.
Perfect, thank you.
And you second?
Motion is.
Oh, you want-
I made the motion.
Oh, I'll second it. Sorry, I lost my head.
All right, are we good? Roll call?
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman, aye.
And Nichols eye. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Sorry to be a total team. I'm not sure that the DPW one was supposed to be under
It wasn't, that's why I think he caught that.
Oh, okay, I didn't think, okay.
Yeah, he said
That's
that
not
the
what he
DPW
caught.
person is not on the economic development.
Okay, I thought it was, okay.
Or designee?
No, it's
No,
not.
that was the other,
It's
that
a
was the other.
different commission.
That's the
Okay.
one that you started to read and I told you was,
So the DPW person is not correct, I
Yeah,
think
the
that-
person, the DPW one is not on the
the
economic
2
development.
cultural
That's the
commission ones are on the same
Insurance
chart.
Advisory
Tamika. That's
Committee
why
with
she was reading
Joseph.
down the chart.
Oh, so take him out, yeah, he's gonna come up next, I think. Okay, sorry, that was, yeah.
All right. Letter of interest of candidate to be appointed to the Insurance Advisory Committee. Vote to approve appointment.
I make a motion to approve the appointment of Joseph Nunzilio. Nunzilio. I wanna learn it. Term to expire June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Roll call.
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman, aye.
And Nichols eye. Thank you. Next, Rutland Community Garden Project. Vote to approve the use of the community center gardens. Do we have information? We don't have any information on that, right? In our packet.
Oh, is he here? Okay.
Yes.
He's here.
Hi, how are you? George Farrington, 21 Charlotte Drive. So, a little backstory, if I could. I'm a brain tumor and brain injury survivor, and I attend a brain injury community center in Worcester. And prior to COVID, I helped start a community garden for the community center, and it was at the Worcester YWCA. And we grew over 1,000 pounds of vegetables in a plot that was like 300 square feet. And those vegetables went to supply food for the community center's kitchen, which we made meals for the members for. And then any leftover veggies went home with members and staff that didn't have access to fresh vegetables. I got to thinking one day, well, if I can do that in a grubby little plot in Worcester, what could I do here in town that's got just a heritage of farming? So my plan is to put together a nonprofit organization called the Food Equity Insurance Directive, or FEED. So Feed Rutland, and I want to make this transferable to different towns. Feed Rutland, Feed Oldham, Paxton, whatever. Alta Vista Farm has already granted us use of some of the property over at his place to start a garden, because my vision is to actually have one of these gardens in every neighborhood of Rutland. Myself, as a disabled person, I can't drive, I can only walk. So to have one of these gardens available to citizens in every neighborhood of Rutland helps people like me, or kids that can't drive, that want to participate in the garden, and so on, because we do want to eventually get the schools involved. That leads us to the community center. There's the beautiful garden on the left side of the building that kind of isn't being used, I guess. We'd like to come in there and fix anything that needs to be fixed, and also be responsible for planting it, maintaining it, working with people at the community center, because one of the goals of the 501c is to hold classes and programs, on how to start your own plants, how to cook the vegetables that are growing, and stuff like that. Two of the main requirements for the garden are going to be, one, that at least one fruit or vegetable from every plant that you grow is donated back to the garden, so we can start a community seed bank. And then the other is that any produce that you have left over that you're not able to use, or you can't give away, or what have you, that gets also given back to the garden, so we can donate it to the town's local food pantry. Now, I understand there's an issue with that, because you can't give away fresh produce or whatever. So my solution to that problem is pay what you can farm stands. It's exactly what it sounds like. Put a farm stand up, put a price on stuff. If you can pay the $3 for the tomatoes, great. If you can't, take them. If you want to pay $50 for the tomatoes, even better. I love you. I'm not asking for any money. We're not asking for any money from the town. We are basically just looking to get this started, to do something good, and give back to the community, and help feed residents where there really shouldn't be an issue of people not having food on their plate in this town, because they can grow. We'd like to build some additional beds alongside where if you're looking at the community center from the street, on the other side of the apple trees, build some additional beds so they're completely raised, so people aren't bending over, and it's more access for seniors or folks with disabilities or what have you. And we're gonna make everything look really aesthetic, and keep the place nice, and plant with native plants, have pollinator gardens, and we're just gonna make it a nice place for people to go and hang out and chill, you know, and become mindful. You know, I know Harbor Homes is doing whatever they're doing up in the Heights. I'd like to talk to them about, once they do a soil test, putting a garden in there. Cause I heard that they wanna make that a community. Well, why not put a community garden within the community? After talking with Dick Williams, cause I'm on the open space committee as well here in town. I didn't realize that there was a rose garden down there in the Heights property. I don't know where it falls in relation to, what Harborview's doing, but if it's on their portion of it, well, hell, I'll tell them, they got the machinery, clean it up, I'll come in there and I'll plant all the new flowers. And that can be another town space for people to just go and be mindful. There's so many people with talent in this town, whether they're artists or writers or whatever, and there's so many places to go that they don't know of. Let's make places to go that they can see, and that's gonna help our citizens in the process. I've got both the Boy Scout and the Cub Pack behind us. Gus, one of the leaders, he's also an attorney. He's gonna do up all the paperwork for the 501c for us. I have, like I said, Kevin Jarry from Alta Vista is on board. Brian Bjorklund from the Open Space Committee, he's a neighbor of mine, he's also on board. We have another woman from town, Emily, I'm gonna butcher her last name, and Jamie. She's volunteered to come on and help us. She actually emailed the Open Space Committee asking if the town had a community garden. So it is, I'm really excited about this, and I genuinely think it wouldn't just be a great thing for the community center, it would be a great thing for the town. Cause again, I have a business plan here, and it goes about 4 or 5 years out, and I wanna have all of these pay what you can farm stands all over town, and instead of decorating them with, you know, cute little chickens and cows or whatever, my oldest child is very much into metal detecting. And he has been to Dick Schultz's farm, Kevin's farm, Overlook View, and the stuff he's found is amazing. He's actually doing a project with the Historical Society with some of the finds that he's gotten. Rather than putting up the cows and the chickens, have the Historical Society and some of the kids from school look up what these artifacts are and make a little plaque, decorate them with the artifacts and the plaque, and now you have these little pay what you can farm stands on all sections of town. Now you got people go bebopping all over different sides of town that they might not have been to, and you create tourism within inside the town, and now you're bringing people that are outside of the town. You're generating a little bit of tourism that way too. It isn't a lot, but it's something. So those are my plans. Thank you for sneaking me on the agenda, and, you know, hopefully I'll hear a vote of yay. Thank you. Any questions, feel free.
One of the things, have you talked to the Ag Commission? And are you aware that they're doing like a mobile greenhouse for the schools? And they have some projects going on. So have you spoken with them? I know you
Not
said
with
you
the
spoke
schools,
to
no.
Dick Williams. No, the Ag Commission.
No, I haven't spoken with the AgCom yet, no.
Okay. But you're in the process of setting up a nonprofit, but that hasn't been set up yet?
Right.
But you have a business plan that you've developed?
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that we could look at as well?
It's, to be perfectly honest with you, you can. It's all scratched out in a notebook. I used to know how to write a fancy business plan. I was a businessman in my prior life before my tumor. Now, everything gets done pen to paper as soon as I think of it.
I guess, I mean, because I know you met with the director and stuff like that. We have some gardens there that we've had like zero interest in as far as getting people to pick the veg. I know because I'm the one that's I'm stuck picking them all the time. As well as there's a watering problem there. I don't know if you realize there's only one outside faucet that's on the other side of the door, that they put the hose up over the doorway going into the kitchen and try to drag it. So there's not really access for water there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're aware of that.
Yep.
And then I don't know as far as insurance, you know, just a lot of unanswered questions that I'd wanna really know. And that's why I asked about the business plan, exactly how it's set up and what the town's role would be in it.
Nothing.
Well, it's our
So-
land, so.
Well,
we have to have
your,
a role, right.
that's your role, would be providing land for citizens of the town to get together and have a community garden at the community center.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, a couple of comments, right? So, I expressed my concern to you that, I like the concept of this, but I'm concerned that unlike Worcester, where there's no land to do farming, there's tons of land in Rutland for people to do. And I'm not as convinced that people would go there to do it, but a couple of comments. One is that, you sent a letter saying you'd like to do 9 additional beds, and I'm wondering how successful the first couple of beds that are already existing on the property are gonna be. So I guess my first comment is, I think you heard our earlier debate about getting staff to help. Even when you pay them, it's hard to find people.
Mm-hmm.
But you're asking for volunteers to do it. Why wouldn't you start with a couple of beds, see how, if you're successful, and then if you're successful, ask for more beds and build more beds? That would be one of my questions. But the second question I have is concerned about the 501c3. So I get the nonprofit status, and in our original conversation, we had a lot of discussion about you donating the food to the community center so they could have fresh vegetables for the seniors. However, using either town property or selling something from the town property, even if you're selling it at low amounts, I'm not sure is it appropriate to use a land to raise money for a nonprofit, to use the town for that purpose. So we'd have to have more discussion about that and see if that is appropriate or not appropriate. I have no problem at all with the donations to the senior center, but beyond that, of trying to use it to raise any funds might be a problem, because we don't let anybody come onto the town to use the town property for fundraising necessarily.
Okay.
But it's something we could have discussion about, because
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not
fine.
sure what you have in mind yet.
I could just, honestly, you can just have all the vegetables from the community center donated to the seniors that go to the
Yeah.
community center.
Yeah, that's easier, but that's what I say, when you start talking about having stands and selling
Yeah.
things, you make it more complicated. So I just want you to be aware of that for discussion.
Sure.
But those were my thoughts. I don't have any problem with the original beds, seeing if it's successful and seeing how you do, and then increasing from there would be my thought. But again, it's up to the board how they want to deal with it. I just don't know that creating 9 beds before we know if anyone's going to actually do the stuff we want is a good idea. So I'd
Fair
like
enough.
to kind of like to see some building stage of some type is my thought, but that's the board, it's up to the board as to how to go forward with that.
When you had mentioned the heights, I thought that was actually a great opportunity, because typically you see these community gardens from people that don't have land, and those are gonna be very tight, there's gonna be a lot of people living there that won't have room to actually have their own garden, so it probably would be a great spot to have some kind of a community garden.
Right.
As long as the residents in there have an interest, that'd be a great resource of people to come and work. The problem with the community center is it's kind of out and away, and unless people are there, so unless you actually have people, because I know way back when there was somebody on the select board that was trying to push this for the seniors and do a garden off that, and they were going to make it wheelchair accessible. They don't want to. A lot of them don't want to garden, and like Ron said, a lot of them still have their own properties in the garden. So I don't think you can count on the seniors doing the work. So, but you had mentioned you've talked to the scouts, which are the best resource, because what's there has been done through Girl or Boy Scouts or whatever, and the senior center director has had some volunteers to help with weeding and stuff like that, but honestly, nobody will even pick those. And there's already strawberries and blueberries, and there were vegetables there, and the director and myself were the only ones that would go out and ever pick them. So you really need to make sure you have some kind of a workforce. And my problem is, it's not the baseball field where you build it and they will come. You need to make sure that somebody's going to come and maintain that. And there is one rain barrel, maybe that's a resource, but there is a water issue with trying to get water to that garden. Like I said, you've got to drag a hose right around the entire building, which goes up over the doorway and everything like that. So those are all the kind of things that still would need to be considered at that particular location. I know the director has her hand up.
One question, sorry, when I talked to you, I had a concern is the water itself. Like with water bans, how I don't even water the garden, so how would that be done, and who would cover it?
That's a question of Joe Buckley in the water department, not me, I have no idea. Are you using city water over where you're at, you're in the town water line?
Mhm.
So again, that'd be a question of Joe, it's not a well of, if it was a well, it would be a problem, but
Okay.
I don't know what the city water limitations are. Again, if we use the existing couple of beds, I'm not worried about it, but as you say, if we get 9 or something, it might be a different issue.
Do you have any experience with water barrels and any of the
Yeah.
other types of them? Okay,
Yeah.
so I mean, that's something you
There's-
would probably want to consider would be the
There's
best.
one there now.
There's also different styles of gardening where you can actually sink water into the ground by using plants. So it captures rainwater. The more you plant, so it really is, you plant it, they will come. I've been doing a lot of research on this because I'm interested in putting a rain garden in my house to trap some of the water that's coming off the roof that's spilling over the rain barrels. You know, because it'll stop what little water I do have coming in along my foundation, and that will probably save me 10 grand. I'd rather plant, $150 worth of plants.
So do you have a consultant that, do you have an agricultural background? Have you grown a lot of vegetables, or do you have somebody that's kind of helps consult with you to
No.
address these type of issues?
No, not at all. I like when my background is I ran granite. I did wholesale of granite. And after my brain tumor, they basically told me to find a hobby. We had just bought the house, we had just moved to town, and we decided to start working on the outside of the house first. So my hobby was gardening, and it turned out I was pretty good at it. And I've continued to get better and better at it every year. Do I have my failures? Sure. Do I have my successes? Absolutely. Am I concerned I'm gonna fail in any way, shape, or form? No.
Another thing I might recommend is that you contact like the Natural Resource Conservation in Holden, with the USDA or the Worcester County Conservation, because I know they've done some community gardens and things like that. And even if it with technical assistance or maybe even funding avenues or things like that, they may be able to help you tweak that business plan. I would just recommend that you look into those resources as well, because they might have a lot of ways that they might be able to assist you with that type of approach.
No, I'm looking into federal grants and all of that good stuff as well to help bring money in to get this thing going. So yeah.
I have a couple.
Sure.
Holden has a pretty successful community garden that's on town property, so, and I think that that's an appointed board through their select board or something. So it's not kind of reinventing the wheel. They're not a nonprofit there, so it's a little bit different. But Holden does have some agricultural background, not to the extent that Rutland does, but they still have agriculture, and they have a fairly successful. It's not. They don't simply grow food. They grow, there's a few participants that grow flowers and, everything. So it's kind of a diverse. I had a couple questions. I would like you to meet up with AgCom or talk to AgCom, because I know that's something they've been working on for the past, I think even since I've been on the board here 4 years, is trying to get community gardens going up and like sustainable community gardens up and going at the schools. So Glenwood is right there next to the community center. So I just don't. I think that both. It can be both. It doesn't have to be either or. But I just would like to see some sort of like touch base with them, just to make sure that it's not like
coordinated,
a duplicate. And I had a question. Maybe Nancy, you can answer this. Was it Girl Scouts that had done that garden originally?
Yes.
And then
two different. It was a Girl Scout troop that did it, like part of it, and then the equivalent to an Eagle Scout in Girl Scouts.
Yep.
She did the final project and made that much bigger.
Yeah. So I think we were talking about this, I think, at the Historical Commission walkthrough at the prison camps. It's just, Scouts are great about putting the projects together, but then it's finding groups that are able to maintain them for the
Right.
long term. And so I think if there is a community garden aspect that's willing to, group that's willing to step in and kind of utilize that space in a more beneficial way than what it kind of has been, I think that would be great.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about, to enhance that, because right now it's almost overgrown, like the roots of the apple trees are
Right.
breaking the beds apart and.
And I know, I mean, I've lived in town for a number of years, and it was never really clear to me, that it was kind of open to the public. It kind of was like this gray area to me as to, it was for the seniors, it was for the, the scouts had done it and only wanted certain people in, or it was, it was never.
It is part of the senior center. We were just talking about kind of enhancing that.
Right, they did it thinking that the seniors would
Right.
want to pick vegetables, want to pick berries, and then they didn't.
Right.
So they're just all there.
Right.
So, yeah, that was the
And so
intention,
it
was
was-
for
but
the seniors to be able to go.
It's not clear, it was
Yeah.
not clear that it's there and not kind of being utilized by the seniors. It was, to me, it was always just kind of that the seniors were, that was this outdoor senior space. So I
Well,
think,
that's because they use the space, but not necessarily tend to the plants and
Okay.
have volunteers do it.
so I think, whether it's just a communication piece or whatever, to better utilize, to make it so that it kind of already is existing, but it's not communicated well, that maybe there could be some support in maintaining the space or utilizing it better or whatever. So, I mean, I would conceptually, I like the idea, and I think it creates, I think in town we have the outdoor space, a lot of us have the outdoor space to provide our own gardens, but sometimes it's doing something in that sense of community also. And it could be, I don't know what your model is as far as plot size or whatever. Sometimes it's supplemental to a home garden or whatever. You're doing it for a different purpose, and it's a sense of community. So I would like to see kind of connection with AgCom just to touch base and see what their plans are for community gardens in general. I think that they're really only working with the schools, and that's fine. But yeah.
I think, Nancy, again, a question to you. You talked about an easement on the property?
I don't know exactly, I don't know the details on it, but I remember when a tree was planted by, I want to say the Lions Club, they had to move it due to an
Because
easement.
they're on the water easement, yeah.
Right, this was a water, okay, so I didn't know what it was, I just know there's some kind of easement there.
This is a lovely project, and I'm looking forward to learning more about it. And I think that's, when it first was presented to us, I think it was this, small little thing that you're going to do. And now that we're hearing it, you're talking about a nonprofit and selling and farm stands, and so in my mind, it's just gone huge. So I need a little bit of time to learn more, I think. But I think that we would support anything that. Again, I'll say the third person, you need to talk to AgCom, because they have things that they're planning on doing. They're talking about farm stands and yes or no, and I don't want us as a board to say yes and then step on somebody's toes as a commission. So yes, do that, and when you get more formalized with the lawyer that's working on the 501c3, I think if we could see some of that paperwork, it might help us to answer some questions too, just on what's doing. And luckily it's almost the dead of winter, so we have a little bit of time, I think. I know there's a lot of planning to do.
Sure. So like I said, yeah, in Holden at the USDA, so Lisa Trotto is with the Worcester County Conservation, and she's worked with community gardens, and she probably could be a good resource to you. And it probably wouldn't hurt to talk to the people that are doing it in Holden as well, and see kind of what they have going on, just as some, as I said, additional resources as you're developing the project.
I think we should also, somebody should look on the board to see what implications there might be between the town and whatnot, if they've got one. As
So I
you
think-
said, we're not reinventing the wheel, but
Right,
let's
so
find out.
I'm friends with a few of the ones in Holden, on the Holden Community Garden, but that's a town appointed group, and so I think it's a little bit different than a separate nonprofit. So I can reach out and kind of look for that what their kind of schedule looks like or whatever, their process. But it's definitely, I think, different than what I
Right.
think George is proposing.
So I think once the nonprofit is formed, we probably would have to look at those paperwork and look at what kind, there's gonna have to be some agreement with the town. So as far as insurance and use and stuff, so I think we'd have to review those documents at that point. So,
I think this is a great first step. If you can go away with that win, it's a great first step, and keep the communication open and
Sure.
take steps along the way.
So what stage are you at in actually forming the nonprofit? You said it's with an attorney currently that's looking at?
Yeah, I'm in the process of planning everything now. I mean, the nonprofit, honestly, was just a means of getting things going to hold money. Technically, I have 27 months to file all the 501c stuff, so I could get going without a 501c3 declaration at non-town sites, no problem.
Right.
And then, you know, I wouldn't have to worry about the community center at all. But I'd like to involve the community center because I can't imagine a community center not having a community garden. It makes no sense to me. Especially since there's one already there, and if it's not being used by the seniors, well then the community should know about it. Because then you and your wife are just breaking your backs picking strawberries and blueberries.
Yeah, but I don't wanna say completely it's not used and it's unfair without seniors here. I'm just saying it could be, you know what I mean?
Well, they use it as a garden, there's memorial things in there, and it was dedicated for different people that, you know, the original director and assistant director, and so they had planted gardens as memorials as part of that whole, you know, and it has tables and stuff, so it's used as like a walking area. It's just not used necessarily like producing a lot of fruit and vegetables that people are taking home, even though there's some plants there, but it's still used as like a garden patio area.
Right, and we've had some great volunteers to maintain it, but then you do it for a year or two and, you know, you're either tired or you get older, or you move out of town, and then I have to find another person,
And correct me if I'm wrong, you've had some Girl Scouts come and help do some cleanup.
We have.
You know,
The last couple of
spotted,
years, they
but
did
not
plant one of
anybody
the
was
beds.
taking, you know,
One of the
committing
groups
to
did.
maintain something.
So they were great, especially this year, and they planted for us, and, you know, we've used those. That's just a small bed, you know what I mean, but some of the, I think it's just grown so big that it's hard to manage. With the, you know, now we're at a point where we need more mulch, we need the beds to be enlarged or at least repaired, because.
Well, actually, the herb garden was dedicated to Skip's wife. So I don't know, like, so what do we think is, what, are you looking from the board?
I really, it was brought to, I think the purpose of bringing this in is to allow them to do some garden on the property. I think that's what it is. Now, the board could choose any alternate it wants, could choose not to take any action tonight, could choose to say, okay, we're gonna allow use of the existing beds for the purposes of community garden, or they could, I guess they could allow up to 9, so the options are all yours as to
Well, I guess that's
anything
why I
in
was
this.
kind of wondering where they were, where he was at on the nonprofit. Who's the entity that we're gonna get, we're gonna end up in some kind of an agreement with somebody, and there's gonna have to be some guidelines and what is, you know what I mean? So who are we agreeing and what are we agreeing to? I mean, at this point, unless we.
So let me, if I could make a suggestion, perhaps to see if you'd be interested. So I think that to start out at least, to kind of get this up and running and get this going, is that we could work out some, you need to get the 501c3 up. You're not going to be planting until spring anyway, right? Is what I would imagine.
Right.
So you're going to get the 501c3 up before then, is what I would suggest. And frankly, I'm not sure, for purposes of this process, you even need to have the 501c3. If the board and me and you come up with some kind of agreement to let your nonprofit organization use those existing beds, and again, I don't know if that interferes with people involved already.
Well,
to have uses.
I would like to see it not turn it over to completely, but see if we can enhance that.
Cooperation between you guys.
And then if that works, then expand it.
Okay, so we would just have an agreement that, you know, you and the director of the community center would work together to build these beds for the first year, and we would look for future expansion depending upon the success of that project or something like that. If that's good enough to start us off and get us going.
If that allows me to start working, that's fine with me.
Does
I
that
just
make
wanna-
sense? If I can get some agreement, we'll, draft up with him some agreement to work with the existing director on the existing beds, and then, we can expand that agreement as we go along, but let's at least get it started, is I guess the concept. Does that make sense?
I'd like to read it.
Well, that's what I said, we'll give it to you guys for review and
Yeah,
approval.
just so we know that, insurance-wise and.
Yep, I'll check with the insurance company. I'm not overly worried about insurance because any citizen can go there now in Garden. There's no extra
No,
insurance.
no, they can't.
A citizen can go there now.
No, they can't.
In the existing garden.
No, they can't.
No.
No, they can't.
You
Why not?
can't plant there.
Because it's not open to the town.
It was built for the senior
No, it's in the
center.
seniors.
It's for
can
the
go there.
seniors,
the
yeah.
seniors
But
can
you
go
just said anybody from town can go. No way in hell.
there. Okay, but even,
Right.
I was actually thinking about the seniors, there are people using it existing, but
No, I mean,
So-
is the board, so we'll just have Ron, start the process of coordinating with him and
To-
the
what to skip, to Skip's point, do we want to, is the board considering opening this up to the town and not just the seniors? Because that's Skip's point, and
I mean, I
Is
guess
that
that
an
was
issue?
part of my question was, the Girl Scouts did it, was it solely for the seniors, or was
Yes,
it
the
for
Girl
the
Scouts
town?
came to help the seniors. Yes, it was made for the senior center. And then like the Girl Scouts that helped this year and last year, just planted some plants and all of that was used and given to the seniors, yes.
So if I'm hearing, tell me if I'm wrong, what you would be more hopeful for is have community involvement to maintain those gardens for the seniors rather than community gardens opened up to the community.
Well,
as a
no,
whole?
I think it could lead into
Okay.
something bigger. I think what we talked about is as a start, and mind you, when I had this conversation, I could only go so far. I didn't have authority to say, yes,
Yeah.
you can use this for whatever purpose. So I think if we can get those gardens go, at least start to enhance what's there, and then see how it goes and add to it. I mean, I would assume, I've never been involved with a community garden, that you would get commitments, right, ahead of time, at least each year. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's usually plot rental, whether that's a monetary buy-in or, because in some communities, they have staff help, provide mulching and materials, not to do it, but materials. In others, it's more just for resources, watering, or, so it's some level of buy-in, whether it's number of hours worked, number of items donated, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, so,
So can we just check, I guess we have somebody?
Yep.
I'm sorry. So Christine, did you have a question?
I do. Christine Bjorflin, 22 Cheryl Ann Drive. I'm confused. Is this about the garden at the community center? Is it open to the public? I think Leah was a little confused about it too, and somebody was just adamantly saying it's only for the seniors. So, but the seniors aren't interested in the vegetables. So it sounds a little confusing.
I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. It's not that the seniors aren't interested in the vegetables. The seniors appreciate the vegetables. I had, I brought vegetables from the outside. I think we're kind of getting away from, it's very difficult to get, whether it's seniors or not. I don't care if somebody's 20 years old. Gardening is a lot of hard work, right?
Yeah.
You know that. So it's hard to maintain it. I don't want to put blame or possession on any of it. It was a project done by the Girl Scouts for the senior center. They planted, a garden that would always grow basically to maintain itself as far as the growth. Like they planted trees and apple trees and blueberry bushes and that sort of thing would sustain itself. Now, of course, as that overgrows, it always needs to be weeded. The beds that they put in initially had smaller plants. As the plants grow, the beds kind of go out, so it needs enhancement. As far as who it's used for, it's always been part of the senior center, but certainly people come to the community center for other things, whether they're playing sports or whatever. We've never used the garden as anybody can come and pick what they want. It just was never, it was never established, so I can't even answer it really.
So, if I could, that was the point, because Select Board Member Clark made a point, and I'm trying to understand.
Okay.
Yeah, so Select Board Member Clark feels, because it sounds like it was kind of originated for the seniors,
Yes.
but there's no, just so I'm clear, there's no documentation, there's no Select Board vote, there's nothing that's just kind of the practice. There's no, the Board of Selectmen didn't in the past vote to have just the seniors use it or anything like that. Is there anything documented how that is set up, or is it just the practice that you guys
There were
have used?
dedications, but I don't know.
Right, there were,
Is it-
I imagine like with other Eagle Scout, programs, projects, it had to have been approved somehow through the organization, right?
This board right here.
You
Oh,
did create
okay.
it, so you did create something.
I remember when the Girl Scouts did.
Okay.
So we should find out what the original creation of the board was. That was kind of what the plan was getting at. If the board voted to do something, we need to go back and look at that vote, because that sets some standard. It skips right about that.
It was
so-
voted to that this Eagle Scout was going to build a garden for the seniors out there at the senior center.
So you allowed them to do that?
And we allowed them to do that, yep.
Alright, so I should, at least you see that vote, because when he said that, it made me think, okay, there's some formal process I'm aware of, so
Right.
let's at least look at the history
I
of
just
this
feel
one.
bad, I don't wanna say that seniors don't wanna take care of it or don't wanna utilize what grows, cause that's not what I mean. But would we appreciate help to support it and to weed it and take care of it like we have in the past?
Right.
Yes, and that's why when George came to me, it's like, oh, they wanna do this work, they wanna put them all over town, that'd be great, we'd love enhancement for that and somebody to help take care of it. And then if it is, successful and the board wants to expand upon that and include other community members, et cetera, then that's the route they'll go.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like. It sounded like it's kind of, maybe putting it out to the community a little more would make it thrive and allow it to be a better experience for both seniors and some people in the community. So maybe the garden would have more, care and maintenance if it's opened up and advertised a little more.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I can take all this 5013 nonsense and throw it out the door and just start a gardening club if it's gonna make it easier to go over there.
It almost sounds like it might.
Here's kind of what I'm,
As an evolution.
And make it and I'll start my 5013C and not even mention the town.
well, I guess
So,
what I'm wondering.
I
based
can
upon
do
this
that
conversation-
too.
I'm sorry, but based on this conversation, if he has a group of people that wanna go volunteer to help, to weed the garden and do things for the seniors and give the product, the plants to the seniors, what does he need us to do anything for? Because that's what the Girl Scouts are doing, right? They're a group of people getting together to help do the garden. I'm not sure what he would need at his board if he's got agreement by the director to work with him to an existing thing to weed and grow vegetables. I'm not sure what we need to do, if we need to do anything for that.
We could use this as a prototype, an experiment, how is this gonna work?
And in the meantime, you might even wanna talk to the town administrator, manager, and
Oh,
kind of see how that's all
Yeah,
set up, just so you have an idea of how it works,
I'm-
because that's a community one, as it is.
I'm not convinced we
Like I
really
told
need
you, I wanna
any
have these all over
based on
town.
what we say.
Well, it
But,
depends
I mean,
if
if it's gonna
if
cause
he's not
this
expanding
much of
to
an
9
issue,
beds and taking up a bunch, so you just
why
need to
can't we
make sure
just
he's not
start the
taking up
gardening
fields,
club?
because they
We are
use those
citizens of the
sports,
town.
you know what I mean,
Right.
they need to.
And then
He said he was willing to accept the current beds and work with the current bed situation, and then later on, if that's successful, we could talk about other beds and stuff.
I think my question is
it would just be more of like, all right, come on,
intent, what the final intent is the intent to open it up larger to the larger the whole Rutland community, or is it a group doing it to provide the service to the senior center?
I think he's starting with
And
the
so
seniors, but he sounded like he wanted to have different gardens
Right.
in town for the
He's
whole
got
community.
one going over jobs right
Right.
now.
But he's just
But that's private
getting
land,
excited,
so that's why.
right?
Right.
And so that's, I guess, my question is if it's a group volunteering to take care of the existing beds to maintain them on behalf of the senior center, then that's one thing. Or is it opening up and essentially creating a community garden on town land? Then I think that's a different
Well, that's
different
what
than-
eventually he wants to, would
Right.
like to do.
Right.
But
Right.
I think the first step, it does seem it's the senior center, because, I mean, how long have you been like giving out you've been handing out vegetables to the seniors all summer long, right? Once a week you've been providing from
Right.
farms, they've been bringing them in and buying them and
Right.
and donating them to the seniors. So if this actually could become a productive garden,
Right.
it would
But I
provide
think
that same service.
That it's in my mind, it's not necessarily two entirely separate things, but you have to have buy-in from people that are willing to do it as a service to the
Mhm.
senior center
Right.
versus I'm doing this either as my garden or
Right.
to supplement my garden at home or because I want to grow flowers and I can't grow flowers at my house for whatever, so it needs, I think that it's two very similar but potentially very different
Mhm.
avenues, and I'm not sure what the intent of George and the community garden sense is versus how that meshes with what the town maybe is thinking. I don't know.
And you said you're also going to be growing stuff at Jarvie's farm. Is that true?
Yeah,
true
somewhere on the Jarvis farm, and then like I said, this plan is going 3, 4, 5 years off into the future. I'm looking to get donations of private land from other people to put these in every neighborhood of town. I'm not the senior center, community center, whatever you want to call it. I'm confused at this point. Is just a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
The gardens were already there. It's a place where, they're already there and they're already productive. So it's really just a place where I can get some volunteers to go and beautify an area and start doing what I want to do while I'm starting up the stuff off of town property that's gonna, feed the world.
Yeah. I mean, it does seem like a first good step is to see how the gardens work and enhance and see what it can, they can produce there and where we want to expand it. Like I said, I could see over at Rutland Heights with all those over 55 housing going in there with no yards and stuff like that. I could see them having their own community garden for that site as well, or something like that. So we could expand into other ways. But this would be a nice way to start,
So,
I guess.
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, would it be okay if me and the community center director work with him for the purpose of improving the existing gardens, specifically any crops, vegetables are grown would be specifically for the seniors in the senior center, and that would be the start, and that way we can move without any kind of board approval. At least that starts the process, and then we can kind of build from there. Does that make sense?
Does the board? I mean, we had to start somewhere, and it seems to
Sure,
be
why not?
the best first step. I mean, does that work for you to start at that
It
site?
works for me, yeah. Like I said, like you just said, you gotta start somewhere.
Right.
You gotta walk before you can, you gotta walk
Comfortable
before
with
you
that,
run.
Nancy?
And
You comfortable with what I just said, Nancy, or do you want me to repeat
Oh, no, I'm fine, and hopefully it would get to the point like with the Girl Scouts this year got involved, and then they get excited about it. It would be nice to kind of mix groups and
Yep.
eventually build into something
it?
else.
Well, he may want them to help him with what he's doing, the
Well,
plans and stuff. So that's
they've
fine.
already been contacted, and that's just it, this whole thing is it's to build a sense of community in this town, because quite frank, like, my opinion, and maybe it's just mine, but when Heifer left, a big part of this town's heart left with it, and so did the sense of community. There's no COVID hit, there was no 4th of July celebration, blah, 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 everybody's a curmudgeon now. So I wanna bring that sense of community back, and
I think me and
gardening is so helpful to so many people in so many different ways that it's more than just putting food on the table. And having these gardens, whether it's something that is at the community center or whether they're dotted all over town, something that's gonna help beautify the town and keep people coming for the same reason why I came here, why my family moved here. I mean, that's the whole point,
we're building 420 something houses, we better figure out a way to get people to buy them, because if not, we're gonna be sitting on a whole lot of empty house lots, and that's gross.
So, Mr. Chairman, I think me and the community center director have a clear understanding of the scope of where the board wants to go at this point. We will work with the gentleman along that scope, and if anything changes, we'll bring it back to the board for future consideration. I don't think the vote is necessary.
All right, thank you. And I would still look at, checked in those resources, because,
Oh, yeah.
there's a lot of
Thank you very
stuff
much
out
for
there.
the suggestions. Trust me, I'm reading up everything that I can possibly read up on this thing.
There's a lot of technical assistance out there that they can provide, usually free.
Well, my buddy Brian here, he's a wildlife biologist, a member of the Open Space Committee. Melissa Danza, she's a conservation
agent for South.
Yeah, she's a conservation agent for Southborough, and she's helped start the Southborough Seed Bank. So I'm tapping into her as a resource. So yeah, it's not like I'm just coming here on a whim. This is something that's been pretty well thought out, despite the fact that it's all on a couple of sheets of loose leaf paper. So.
All right. Well, thank you. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you. I
Excited.
appreciate you
Hopefully
guys.
things will kick off with that start. So.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Mid-year scale wage correction effective January 1st, 2022, tabled from July.
Well, Mr. Chairman, this is being brought forward by the fire chief, and I'll let him comment before I comment on it, so that he can bring forward his plan, and then we can have some discussion about it from there.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Back, I think it was July 29th, I met with this board to discuss this issue for the payment of hourly rate for on-call fire personnel. We had a very lengthy discussion. I brought up all the pros regarding it and the need to do it, and that the on-call staff, because they are not a set scheduled individual, they do not fall on any wage and classification plan in this town. So we've come up with a matrix that is here now in front of you, and we're trying to make it more in line to what other towns are paying, and to be mindful of what the full-time staff or the union staff is being paid. I was kind of hoping we could talk about this a little bit, because whether you are a full-time firefighter or a paid on-call firefighter, you are required to have the same state certification level. You're required to do the same number of hours of training, and you're required to hold all the same licensing required to do the job. So the days of volunteering and just showing up, putting the boots on, and learn as you go is gone. There's no more volunteers left because it's not allowed in this state. Every on-call firefighter is fully trained, and currently right now we have 25 active on-call firefighters. What I'd like to do is I would like to do a mid-year correction, and the reason why I'm not proposing a retroactive one is I would like to make the jump significant to make the correction all at once. So we're not coming at this year after year after year, to make it effective January 1st. We would not be asking for any additional money in the line item. Currently, this line item is in a big surplus, just due to the lack of fire responses that we've had in this fall. So there is a looking out, averaging out each month, we do have a surplus going forward to the second half of this fiscal year. My biggest concern is that, I'll give you an example. The town of Southborough, population to Rutland is within 2,000 people, so we're very similar in size. They lost their call firefighters over the last 15 to 20 years, and they have less than 10 left. They have a full-time staff of 21 full-time firefighters, and we do more calls than they do. So put that in perspective. We have 11 full-time staff. We do more emergency calls, more ambulance calls and fire calls than the town of Southborough, and they have 21 full-time staff. My fear is that if we don't compensate these on-call people and attract new ones, we could be looking at that in the next 5 to 10 years to increase our staff by double in order to answer the calls of service to this community. So, I gave you the updated chart proposed. It is a significant increase. It's still 10% less than the full-time staff makes. So, obviously they are non-union, and if I'm trying to get in front of 24 people coming knocking on your door to create a second union in the fire department. So I'm just asking that we treat them fairly. I would ask any one of you, would you get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to scrape ice off your windshield, to come out in the middle of the night at 20 degrees or colder to a motor vehicle accident? And this is what we're asking these people to do, to leave their families on holidays, special occasions with their families at a drop of a dime, for, little money. Obviously, they're not doing this job to make a living. It supplements, what they're doing, and they're doing it because they're called to serve, and they're called to serve the community and give back. So I'm asking that you vote favorable on this measure this evening.
So, Mr. Chairman, first, let me say that a great deal of respect for the fire chief and what he's proposing, and like all of you, I understand why he's proposing this. And originally, this is actually a little different than I thought was coming forward, because when we talked about this during budget season, we talked about a straight 3% increase, and we would have been talking about that retroactive like we did the other non-union employees. And I made the case to you that it was somewhat unfair to give them 3% raises when all other non-union employees were getting 2% raises. The chief is making, I think, a completely different case here tonight than we've had in discussion in the past, which is a complete upgrading of the matrix to put in salaries he thinks that are more reflective of what these positions are paid in other towns and how they respond to collective bargaining agreement. So there's no 3%. As a matter of fact, the chief, I think all these percentages are different depending upon the position. Clearly, the chief is different. I think the captain is different, but I don't know if he went 3% with everything else or there's some other process. But my comment to this is, I get it, I understand it, but again, these numbers are going to have to be reflected in next year's budget for the full time, and these salaries are going to have a significant increase in the cost of this small segment of his budget. So the board has to decide if it really wants to invest in this process or not. This is not a straight 3% raise. It's beyond that, significantly beyond that in some of these positions. I think the key issue is, can you afford this? Now, I'll say this, and I wanted to have the chief be able to make his pitch before I said anything, because I thought that would be fair, and I also allow him to respond to what I'm saying. I don't think you're necessarily going to lose positions here regardless of the salary changes, because I think this is a learning environment for people who are looking for more permanent full-time jobs. Many, and I'm not going to say all, many of these positions are going to eventually join his full-time staff as people leave, or other towns' full-time staff, because this is kind of where they get the experience and they can put this on their resumes and build up. So I'm not sure that the salary is important in that respect. I don't know, quite frankly, the chief's argument of, are we going to lose all these people to another town? Or are we not going to have this reserve group? You can call these auxiliary call firefighters. If we're going to lose this like the other town did, I frankly have no idea what the future brings as time as this go. My only real concern is the fiscal piece of this. Can we afford it? And should we move all at once in this direction the way the chief's doing it? That's really a decision up to the board. He's correct in that he's calculated the funding to make it work within this year's existing budget, because he's not making it retroactive. So he budgeted for the 3% increase, I think, at the beginning of the year. I'm correct, it's what he told me. So there was 3% of all these salaries in the budget. He's kind of redividing up how this is going to work and kind of carrying it to the end of this year. But there'll be a significantly more than 3% increase probably in next year's budget as we do this. So again, it's a policy decision of the board, but it is a significant increase in important discussion.
Chief?
Through the chair, I just want to let the board know that our median age of our call fire staff is almost 45 years old. In the next thing coming up this evening, we have someone retiring after 47 years of service. So to tell me that, you know, they're using this as a stepping stone, these are residents that live in this town. And I would say the last 4 full-time staff we've hired don't live in this town. And, you know, so, you know, we don't generate enough turnover in full-time staff that these people are using us to, you know, get on our full-time staff. These people live here, they live in the community, and they're giving back to the community. And I have, you know, great respect for what they do. That's how I started, you know, 32 years ago. You know, and I grew up in it. You know, I'm a second generation firefighter. You know, so this is my entire life. And for what they're doing and what they're sacrificing with their families, I'll tell you, our call fire staff budget is $34,000. That's almost a third, less than half of what one full-time firefighter costs. So even if it's $10,000 more, that's better than hiring 10 full-time staff. I don't know. I'll tell you, it's very hard to recruit the younger generation into this line of work because it is so demanding. And you know, you may get the 18, 19, 20-year-olds that are going to college and living at home. They will actually do this. And those are the ones that aren't going to live in this town because they can't afford to live in this town. And they're going to move on somewhere else. But the ones that are here and the ones that are first-time home buyers in this town with young families, they don't have the time to commit to the training requirement to become an on-call firefighter because, you know, family lives, you know, both spouses are working full-time jobs, they got kids, activities, they don't have the time. So I'm just warning you that in 10 years from now, and it's not just us, it's the police department, that the scope of public safety is going to change dramatically in this town. And I'm just trying to get ahead of it and trying to address, you know, something that's right in front of us now, that if we can delay it, you know, years down the road, then if anything we can do to do that, then we should do it.
Jeff Stillings, 3 Lord Lane. I just want to add, I can only presume that majority of the 25 on-callers are somehow involved in the ambulance, and the ambulance, as you know, pays for itself, right? It's almost an equal balance in there, so take that in mind. As the cost of services go up, so should we compensate those who are providing those services.
So you obviously realize if this increases your budget, then when come budget season, you'll have to, if they tell you whatever cuts, whatever, you'll have to find the way to balance this out with the wages and the rest of the. I'm curious as far as the union. So if somebody is a union firefighter in Rutland and then they are a volunteer in another town, they aren't still part of a union. Don't you always have to get union wages even if you work in another? How does that work? It's not like regular unions.
No. So how that works is, for instance, I have several full-time firefighters that work in other towns that live in Rutland that with us, because they're not part of the same town unit, but they're not paid the same union rate.
Okay, so it doesn't go outside of the town; it stays within
it. Yep.
Ron, you had a question?
Yeah, just a couple of questions, Chief, and I you know this makeup way better than I do. Of how many? Is there 25 guys that are on the call list? How many live in Rutland? Is it half, more? What do you got at the Rutland residents?
It's probably 85% of them.
Okay, and to Jeff's question, how many are EMTs that are actually doing ambulance calls?
Probably 90% of them.
So most of them are EMTs
Yep.
as well? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Karen.
Karen Narwhal, 149 Palmagussit Road. So earlier this evening, I heard how we didn't even look at the 6 candidates and we were already looking to increase them. We don't know their training or anything. And yet we're arguing over guys who are trained, have to come with the same certifications as our full-timers. So why are we having this conversation?
I don't know that we're arguing, but and I don't think anybody is saying that they don't deserve
I just don't
what they're getting paid.
understand. They're coming in with what they need to do on the job.
And they're getting paid less than
Right.
what the
Still less.
full-timers are.
Karen?
Seth and I have had an individual conversation about this. I went to him after I said no the last time, and I said, come up with a plan. And the biggest difference, Karen, that I see with this is it's a plan. And I applaud you, actually, Seth, for, I said, do incremental. And Seth did it all at once, and if he can make it work, and then I applaud you for getting them up there. It's done. And that's what I'm hoping we can do with the town's other employees. And if we're increasing everybody's pay by $2 and $3 an hour, and good news is the assessments are going up, I mean, I'm hoping that we can make it work. But it's a plan, and I want to support this. That's
If I may, I was going to say, I support it because it's an entire matrix put together as a plan. It's not just piecemeal. Here we want to up our whatever on-call person. It's an entire plan. And to Karen's point, they've all had the same training that that the full-time staff has. And so I think as the population in town has grown, we're going to be looking at increasing our public safety staff as it is, and if we can keep our on-call staff happy and willing to go out in the middle of the night to some horrific calls, then I'm all for it. I mean, it's not, to Seth's point, it's not the cost of an entire new full-time person at this point, and at some point in the, I think probably very near future, we're going to have those hard conversations. But if Seth's confident that he can make it work, we know ambulance revenues have been up, historically increasing over the years. So I assume, similar to what Mr. Stilling said, that more calls are going to result in ambulance revenue. So I would think that in some ways that's a balance.
One more thing, and Seth, I'm hoping that by doing this, all of a sudden, what you said about the college age kids that are going, I mean, I know personally that this happened. So, you know, as something to do as an interest turned into a lifelong career. And if we can pay them and attract them with the pay and then the job, because that's, you know, something to do, I'm kind of interested, but, and then hopefully we can get the rest of the town so that we can have these young people stay in the town, because as they move further and further out, it's harder and harder to have them be on call.
Correct.
So.
And Anna Maria has a fire science program, and they have students that come in from all over the country with the certifications, and they're getting their bachelor's degree in fire science. And right now, they're all going to Paxton because Paxton's paying a higher rate. And then, 10 years ago, they were coming to us because we were paying more than Paxton. So, it was, so if we can be competitive, we can gather those resources at least during the college school calendar year. It'd be a turnover of personnel, but it's still, they're there for 4 years, and, they'll move on from there, but it's a resource to tap.
I know I know a few college students that have gone away to college and have started the training while at college because they have an interest in it. Maybe not a full-time interest, but they want to be able to do on-call work. And so they're home for breaks, they're home for the summers, potentially moving back home given the current job market and cost of living and everything. If we can tap into some of those individuals also, it lowers that age and provides an opportunity as well.
Well, the one thing I like is that the money's there. We're not shorting your budget, and then you realize that you're going to have to budget accordingly going forward to maintain this level of wage matrix. And I certainly have all the respect for the firefighters and the police department and everybody, and I have no problem in paying them what they're due. But I will say on the CERT team, I would go out in the rain, and I did work the ice storm 24/7 and wash my head in a cold bucket of water, but that's why I respect them.
There you go.
Yes.
I just wanna make a comment too, that, I mean, it's a gift to everyone, because it's that one time, that, you know, you're there if you need them, you hope you never have to use them, but it's insurance, and that's a gift to the whole town.
And I just want to reiterate, thank you again for putting together a comprehensive entire matrix plan for us, and I think that that's helpful, and I feel better saying yes to something that is kind of taking that section of employees and working forward with them. So thank you.
All right. Someone want to make a motion?
Make a motion to accept the ratification on the wage metrics for the fiscal year 2022. The on-call fire staff within the department is outlined in MGL Chapter 48, Section 42, that will take effect on January 1, 2022, according to the chart below.
We have a second?
Whitman seconds.
Any discussion or questions? A roll call?
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman aye.
And Nichols eye. All right, thank you. And next, we're looking to approve a proclamation to acknowledge a retirement. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Whitman seconds.
Okay, roll call?
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman aye.
And Nichols eye. So we'll sign that. And if people aren't aware, we were going to, thank God we're not doing Ron's review at 9 o'clock at night, but we've moved that to next Monday. We're going to meet with the bylaw committee, do the review, and then go into executive session on union contracts. And we're going to meet at 5:30 to address the...
We're gonna talk about it, see where we're at.
Okay. All right. I don't think we need to go through any of these other goals and objectives. We already talked about economic development. Does anybody have any other things that the board needs to discuss?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Whitman seconds.
Roll call.
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman aye.
And Nichols eye.